and they knew they were gonna die. When I was in that position, I would shut the fuck up and listen, and I think we need more of that.
It's not a game where you have to gain motivation points.
If you're out of motivation, the next guy who doesn't need motivation because he's disciplined is gonna come in, take your fucking prize, and you're still broke, and this motherfucker's rich now. You know, do your parents have to fucking worry about the bills? Like, holy shit, if this is a factor and you need motivation, what you really need is a fucking kick in the balls.
Hey guys, I hope you are well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 2 of the first episode of the Winner's Circle podcast with Sami Loyal. If you guys haven't seen that first part already, go click up here in the cards, it will pop up right now. Go watch that episode. It was a lot more about talking about what Sami's life was like, going from a child to becoming an entrepreneur, why he started out, what life was like in school and with his parents, etc. Now we're going to be moving into a conversation where we talk about a lot more about what it takes to become a teenage multi-millionaire, just like Sami did at the age of 18. So I hope you guys really enjoy. I definitely did enjoy it, so go ahead and watch this video and I'll see you later. So one other big thing that I'm sure a lot of the guys and girls who are starting out at a very young age, just like us, they're thinking like, how do you have the where did your motivation come from? How did you did you ever do like any sort of methods like affirmations or like storyboarding or having like pictures of what you want? Like, did anything like that, or was it just straight, just like you just got it done, you just wanted to do it and you did it?
Both. First of all, motivation is a horrible thing to rely on. Yeah, I mean I hate hearing it. Like when you know, I don't actually get annoyed when people come to me and say stuff like this. But if anything would annoy me, it would be this motivation question because. If you need motivation to do something, you're totally fucked. Like, go crawl back in your hole. It's not gonna work. You know, I mean, you need more than that. But yes, I did have a lot of motivation in terms of manifestation. That was a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, especially the first $100,000. It was very hard for me to imagine. I had a lot of mental blocks. You know, growing up poor. You're told by society in so many indirect ways that you can't be rich. You know, a great example is just when people tell you not to take risks because you can't afford to take them, otherwise you're homeless, and stuff like that. You know, so I had to do a lot of work there undoing that damage again, which is why it's so important to do this stuff young, because God forbid you compound bad ideas on top 100%. Of each other into your 20s. You know, like it's so much harder. Sure. You know, like 30s, 40s, you're a lost cause. I mean, some are going to be able to pull through, but for the most part, that's just way too much social conditioning for one lifetime. But yeah, you know, I had to undo that. So there were a lot of affirmations. I would write in the shower, I have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. You know, fucking with an arrow. You know, I'd draw out the number and stuff like that. I was you know, 10 times in a row, I'd say it out loud. I'd visualize the number. I was really into that. And I don't know about storyboards. I didn't. You know, I'm a lazy guy, so I wouldn't have put that together. But no, I did a lot of the affirmation stuff for sure. I mean, that was a big part of my life. Yeah.
Do you feel like you ever? One thing that I did, which I think really helped me kind of just not even get kind of like, it wasn't even like a real feeling when I hit 10k a month, like my first 10k month, was the thing that I did was somewhat like somewhat of an affirmation kind of thing where like I just tell people. So to have it I have it on a board in my like my goals. I have it on a board in my room. I have like 10k a month. I'm making 10k a month. I have this many team members. I'm providing this services, that kind of stuff. And I started to tell people like at the age of like 17. Yeah, at 17, that whole year of 17, pretty much actually like February till September when I actually hit 10k a month. That whole year I started telling people, like when they asked me like what are you doing now, because I somehow told people like when I got excited about it, you know, with the excitement, I kind of told people, yeah, I'm starting a business, all that kind of stuff. So my family, for example, like knew, my friends knew, some of my friends knew, none of them were on board with it, but you know, when extended family or like, family friends would ask me like, what's this thing you're doing, I'd say I started a social media marketing agency. We do Facebook ads, all this kind of stuff for e-com businesses. I say, how's it going? And I always say, we're on track to hit 10k a month by my birthday at the end of the year. I literally say that to everybody that ever asked me. You know, like, how's it going? Like, how's the business going? So did you ever have something like that when people, like your mom, your dad, somebody asked you, your friends, anybody asked you kind of like, how was your trading going? Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do with it? Did you ever say, what was your response? You know, what was it for you? Did you ever like tell people that you want to make a certain number? Or just kind of kept it quiet?
To be honest, bro, I don't really remember, but I don't think I was too vocal about those goals. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I read was, you know, when you talk about the goals you want to hit, you give yourself some level of mental satisfaction. Yep. Obviously, it's not as much as the real thing, but it's enough for most people because they just want dopamine at the end of the day. So I was generally more hesitant to talk about stuff like that, but you know, like when I hit my first 10K, I told my parents. That was September of 2017.
Yeah.
And you know, and there were things like that, but I kind of learned to stop talking about it as much because you know, my parents were telling me to quit and so on.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, I mean, I was living in London, so you know, I had to be careful too.
So what was it like with your parents, for example? With your parents, because for me it was definitely like a battle. It was a big battle that lasted like kind of like probably the hardest time I've ever had in my life. Probably one of them, definitely the first, where I was like, I so passionately wanted to do something, like I thought my life would end if I didn't do it. And my parents and actually nobody else was on board. Like nobody was like somewhat, I guess, figuratively in my corner. So what was that like for you when it came to like, was it a thing where for me I kept it quiet? So after my first kind of like my first few like knockdowns with my parents, for example, for me it was like I had this like a thing. Was one of the worst things about the online business space is like people have this mental barrier which has been built up by watching YouTube and Instagram all the time, by thinking if they don't have the money to buy a course, for example, a grand 997 is the normal number. If they don't have that money to buy a course, they can't start this business. So that was one thing for me. Like when I had this same thing that I'm sure all of you guys have. Like there was a course out there, 997, and I thought, okay, I can't start it till I get this course. This is how I start this business and how I start making money. So when I approached my parents, they would like, that was when after I approached my parents in that time about like starting a business and the fact that I want to do this, not university, or like I want to be a businessman, not back when I was 16, not like a student or like a normal average life or any job. I was just completely shut down in the worst way, probably. Obviously you guys know that Asian parents are a bit more brutal with it. So parents, friends, nobody was really on board. I got bullied for it a fair bit. And then after that, just stopped. Like Sami said, learned to just stop talking about it. But obviously with your parents, it's a different story because you can't just like hide from them as much. Obviously you can, but you can't hide from them as much. So what was it like for you when it came to your mum and your dad?
Yeah.
Talking about it.
I mean, somewhat similar to you, man. My dad was cool actually. I'm lucky with my dad. You know, I mean, you know, he was an entrepreneur before. He knows the deal. He doesn't like the idea of working for somebody himself. He hasn't worked for anybody for a very long time. He was cool. He knew I'd figure it out. Gee, love it.
That's him, man. He's a G. He's a G.
yeah. He's a good guy. Not the same story for my mom. I mean, Mom came from a family where nobody was educated. No one had a university degree yet. Still nobody does. I was the oldest son in the family. Like, my mom was the oldest in her like family out of all the brothers and sisters she has, and so I was the oldest, you know, like sub-child, or I guess grandchild. And you know, I looked like I'd be the one to get a university degree.
The first one to actually do well.
Yeah. I mean, I was a good student, you know, back when I cared. You know, I mean, I was doing well. I was always at the top set and getting the top grades or close to the top.
Did you feel like you tried at university? Sorry, tried at high school? Like
no, I was one of the, you know, I mean, I was just one of the guys that kind of
everything was just easy.
I mean, you know, up until a point, you know,
like, like most things you just understand without having to do the work, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know if that's like an IQ thing, or I honestly, I think it's just that I was paying attention.
Yeah,
bro.
That's the big thing. Like with school and stuff, a lot of like kids say this to me. They say I'm really bad at school. I'm really bad at maths. It's just you can't be bad at a subject in school. It's not complex enough for you to be bad at.
Yeah.
Realistically, all it is just when you're bad at something, or for like throughout school you don't do well in a certain subject, it's because you didn't pay attention to it from the start.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing with school, especially where like people are glorified for being smart or just being the smart kids, but realistically they're just the ones that push themselves to pay attention from the beginning. Therefore, like things that compounded, knowledge that compounded, it comes to them fairly simply, the same way anything else in the normal world would. Like,
I think that if you can understand the contents of this podcast so far, then you're good.
Right,
you know, like you can do anything.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think this is significantly more complex than learning what titration is in chemistry if you're paying attention. But anyway, that was me, and so the thing is my mom had, you gotta, man, like I'm saying this out loud now, it's kind of starting to hit, like I was always like, I don't know what's wrong with her kind of thing, like why would she have this opinion? But look man, this is an interesting way to consider it. You see, she was born and raised in Pakistan, moved to Dubai, that's where she met my dad, had me in England, and she moved to England like a year or two before I was born. And from that point, it was like this fairy tale, I'm sure, in her head of, oh wow, my son is going to be born in Britain, and he's going to get a British education, and he's going to
engineer or something.
I'm sorry?
He's like a doctor.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's the surefire path. You know, as long as I raise my son right and he goes to school, he's going to become an engineer or a doctor or such. Mum wanted me to be a doctor.
Nice.
And you know, and I was headed there. I mean, from age 0, or I guess, you know, you really start getting an idea of intelligence at like what, 3, right? From 3 to like 16, it looked like I was on track, and then I completely derailed it. So yeah, it was not easy with my mom.
Of course.
And there was a lot of tension. My God, my mother and my grandmother put me through fucking hell in terms of stress.
Of course.
Because I couldn't disappoint them, man. And it was right at the end, right when I was finishing my GCSEs. Your English viewers will know about this. You know, I was doing very well right up until like the final half of year 11, which is just before 6th form college. And I started doing horribly then, and I was like, I'm gonna disappoint my mother.
Was that a conscious thing, doing horribly? Was it kind of just like you just lost the love? I mean, lost all the...
It was both. It was both. One of the big things is this is when I first started making what to me at the time was big money. That was when I landed my second kind of job, so to speak, where I was being paid $2,000 a month.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was really good, like £1,600, and it was paid straight into my PayPal. All I had to do was make videos for a guy. I was making videos for a really, really big YouTube channel. My production skills were obviously pretty good back then, so I was able to land this job. And that's why I was saying earlier, like, just having a bunch of fucking skills is so useful.
So what were those skills for you?
Well, it was video production, narration, scripting, editing, sourcing stock footage. In my opinion, this is all pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed, you know, being a creative person. I love getting behind a microphone and so on. So it was right up my alley. And I think I was like 15, 16 at this time. It's roughly when I started trading crypto as well. GCSEs were wrapping up. And yeah, I was making the most money I had ever made in my life at that time. And so I just wasn't very interested. And I also started finding it very hard. You know, so I was struggling a lot. Anyway, I ended up pulling through. I did very well. I stressed myself to the fucking limits. I've never been that stressed in my life, I don't think. And it worked though.
Yeah.
In the end, I was just hammering it, mate. I was just like repeating it, like in The Simpsons. You know when they write like stuff on the board before the episode starts, when Bart is doing that. That's how I was like studying for every exam at the end. And anyway, what ended up happening was, you know, my mom was seeing more and more as I was making money that I wanted to drop out. I didn't want to go to university. I didn't want that standard path, and she was firmly against it. But she couldn't fight me on it when I started making money. You know, you had your Dubai trip where everything changed for me. It was also a Dubai trip for me. You know, this is now at the end of 2018, 1 year into the bear cycle, when Bitcoin went from 20 down to 6, up to 11, down to 6, and then 10 and 6, and flatlined at 6 and went down to 3. That was the catastrophic 85% drop that happened in 2018. It was right at the end of that I had went to Dubai. And the reason was, right before that drop happened, I saw it coming, and so I hedged. And I knew I had like $5,000 of extra profit that I wouldn't have made from something. And I was like, I went to my mom, I'm like, look, I'm about to lose this $5,000. Let's go to Dubai. Let's have a crazy lavish vacation. So we stayed on the Palm. Bro, we were on benefits at the time. You know, like we really came from nothing. Living off welfare. Mom was working a job. And fostering to make some extra side income. It's not really income, but you know, to support the household. You know, and then I was able to afford that. And obviously we came off the benefits too. But you know, I mean, that was kind of what set it off for me, was you know, paying for a very lavish vacation coming from where I came from. And then and that was over the December Christmas break. Spent New Year's in Dubai as well. That's 2018 to 19.
So you were 18 here or 17?
It was 2018 to 19, so I was 17, I guess.
17.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a great vacation. Everything was paid for by me, including the flights, the food, everything, man. Absolutely everything was done. And so I supported the house. I felt like the man of the house. I felt like I had achieved something. I really did something very cool. And then we came back to London in January of 2018 or 19, whatever. And yeah, I obviously had done no homework. I didn't do any coursework and so on. I was just living my life, making my YouTube videos and trading. I was doing very well as a trader back then. It was, you know, a lot easier back then than it is now, in my opinion. Maybe that's a reflection on me, but honestly, I don't think it is, because I'm hearing similar people saying the same things. The trading environment is really hard right now, bro.
Yeah,
just in general. We can talk about that later.
100%.
But yeah, you know, that was very cool. And then you know, when I came back, I was threatened with detentions and so on.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, I just couldn't take it.
For sure. So this is moving us on to the kind of the stage 2 of your entrepreneurship journey. So before we move on to stage 2,
yeah,
for that stage 1 of your life, for like you went from high school kid doing YouTube videos when you're 8, 9, 10 to go to you found trading. You know trading's your thing. You get good at it. You're making a tiny bit of money, but not too much. What was that kind of, if you were to look back in that specific time, not just in general, that specific time when you were a kid, what would you tell yourself as a kid in one specific, it could be about one specific situation, the way you were thinking at the time, your perspective on life, what was one thing you could tell that kid?
To be honest, bro, I think I was doing okay. I wouldn't want to go back and fuck with past Sammy too much. Yeah. If anything, I would say to read more. Yeah. I was already reading, I think, quite a bit.
What age did you start reading?
14. And it was all self-development books. How to win friends and influence people, success principles, think and grow rich, atomic habits. I mean, you know, all the standards, the standards. And you know, people ask what to read. Just like Google self-development books, find a good top 10 list. Find a few good top 10 lists and read the books that overlap between the lists. That's going to keep you very busy. You know,
a lot of books to read.
Yeah. That's enough work for a while. You'll naturally know which books you want to read after that. Yeah. But
what was, before you go into what was your motivation for reading books? Did you kind of have it in you already? Was it
Ty Lopez? Yeah. The Here in My Garage video, Lamborghini, and my bookshelf. And it was the bookshelf thing that intrigued me, and I was gullible enough to believe the story, although I still don't think he was ever lying at any point. And yeah, I thought, you know, I'm gonna read some books. And up to that point, I remembered in the past that Bill Gates was somebody that always spoke about how I didn't know books were as powerful. Books are a fucking hidden superpower in the world, bro. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we talk about, like, I wish I had magic powers. Like, read a fucking book, mate. Like, you know, I mean, they are. I don't want to open that up because I'm very passionate about it. But yeah, books were huge. So I went to. I was wondering, you know, okay, if I want to be like Bill Gates, this is before Bill Gates went crazy. If I want to be like Bill Gates, then one of the things I can do is read, because he reads. So I went to the list of books that he recommends, and that's where I found them.
Sure. So yeah, that's, for me, probably be the same thing when it comes to that stage of entrepreneurship. Just before you're actually praying about being an entrepreneur, a big part of one thing that I always say to people, especially young guys who message me or somehow find me or whatever. I always say, before you start worrying about business or making money, worry about yourself. In terms of reading books is by far the best way you can, you know, change yourself and transform yourself. And above that, just kind of developing habits and having actual routine and structure to your life. A passion about something. So yeah, reading is definitely a big point. So keep that in mind for the stage 1 of entrepreneurship. So on to stage 2, this is kind of a point that we kind of finished at before. We kind of wanted to talk about kind of how it was after making your first bit of money. So if you said that was like 100 grand to 300 grand. So especially like stuff like buying your car, just how life was after you made like your first, after Dubai, your first Dubai kind of like trip with your mum. So you made 100 grand to 300 grand. Kind of how was it getting there? And was there any main obstacles, or how was the path to getting there when it comes to actually trading for yourself? And then kind of like just talk us through that journey of going from like nothing or 10k or 20k to 100 grand to 300 grand, to 4 millionaire.
Yeah, man. That's where it gets fun. That's where life started. And by the way, that's why when someone tells me they want to get rich, I'm like, just don't fucking waste your time, because, you know, I mean, if you're trying to create that kind of destiny in your life, then it's going to get so much better than where you are right now. And trust me, you want to get there as soon as you can.
So what age were you when you made that kind of like first 100 grand, 300 grand?
I hit 100 when I was 16. Yeah, it was pretty good. Right at the end of 16. That was, I don't know, like April 2018, something like that. The crash happened, and then I managed to make a lot of money in that sideways market because I was trading very well, and the business blew up at the same time because I was trading well. So it rapidly blew up my net worth from a low in 2018 in February of $20,000 or 40, I can't remember, to, yeah, I hit 100 on the 1st of July. And that was my affirmation, is when I said I have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, I would also append to the end of that on the 1st of July 2018. Yeah, I had a set date.
Sorry, man. Affirmations. I
Yeah.
feel affirmations, they do definitely have a good effect on you. Maybe they work, maybe they don't work, but I feel like they for sure affirm in your mind. Like I feel one big thing you can do just to make your life better in general is just to think something's done or think something's going to go well before you do it, and then you go into it with intentions that it's actually going to go well rather than living in it as that's going to go badly or it's going to feel.
Yeah, there's one thing that I remember hearing in like podcasts and so on before, which I don't think people talk about enough, is that you've got a lot of power with your conscious mind to make things happen, right? Like it can force you to get out of bed and shoot up heroin, or it can force you to get out of bed and make your fucking bed and be a responsible adult.
100%.
And so your conscious mind is very powerful, but your subconscious mind, a lot of people will argue is much more powerful. And I don't want to say which of these statements is true, but because I don't know. But I know that I wasn't tapping into any of my subconscious power,
yeah, of course.
And I was tapping into what I felt like all of my conscious power.
Yeah.
So let me try doing the other one now. Maybe I'm gonna skyrocket my results, apply a force multiplier to it. So I did, and the whole idea there is, with these affirmations that you gear your mind to look for ways you can make money in practical ways. Like, okay, you want to make money, that's cool. That consciously, let your subconscious do the work. It's almost like outsourcing. It's like you outsource the work to something else. This shit happens while you're sleeping, bro. Like, it just comes to you naturally because you're putting that in your mind. When you feed your mind with good substance, something good is going to come out of it. And so if anything is the magic source, it's that. It's using the power of your subconscious. And you can choose to listen to this and be like, this guy's talking shit, and okay, cool, have fun staying poor. Or you can listen to this and be like, you know what, this sounds interesting, I'm going to look into it.
Sure.
And it's always going to be the second group of people that'll do well. And I remember when I was first hearing about this, I was very, very skeptical, because I've always been like a very science first type person, and I was like, you can't prove this with science. Turns out actually you can. I mean, it's quite obvious when you say it out loud. If you're saying positive things, then you're going to look for positive solutions and so on. But one of the other things that really surprised me is, I don't know if you've heard of this experiment of a Japanese scientist with a glass of water. He took 2 glasses of water, and to one of them he would shout very, very negative, very hurtful, very mean things. You're ugly, you're a bad glass of water, whatever, just anything bad, saying words like death and sorrow and misery. And then he'd take another glass of water and say nice things to it. And when they were frozen, when the 2 glasses were frozen, the crystals were different. The crystals in the happy bottle were beautiful, and the crystals in the negative one were chaotic. That might be total bullshit. I would be curious to see this experiment happen in front of me. But even if it is, and I don't think it is, I'm sure this study was legit. Even if it is bullshit, it's an interesting poetic statement. Sure, and if it is legit, then it's time to get to work on these affirmations, because that is some serious power. So that was it. I had a lot of affirmations, and I set a lot of pressure for myself, and I didn't. By the way, I was about to miss it. It was either 1st of July or 1st of June. I can't remember. And I missed it. I didn't actually hit 100,000 by the day. I was 6-7 days late.
So
which is amazing. That's my favorite part of the story, because I get to say I failed by 6 or 7 days.
That's one thing as well, like with affirmations, and with one thing that I learned recently, and I've known it for a while, but it's kind of like reaffirmed to me by this time when I went to this event where somebody very successful said, do epic shit. And the second thing that he said after that was, set your goals so high that you don't know how to achieve them. Until then, they're not a goal, they're just a task. So if you know how you're going to hit a certain goal, for example, a monetary number, how much you're making with your business, whatever it may be. If you set your goal at a point where you have no idea how to hit it, that's the real goal. But until then, it's just a task we can take off your list and just continue. So one thing with this is, like, even if you set your goal at like a very, very high number, let's say for example, just hypothetically, goal is 100k, for example, like Sami's goal, 100k by July 1st. If you don't hit that 100k, you're still well on your way, if not very close.
I hit 80, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So
from a low of 20.
Exactly. So from going from nothing, and your goal is a big crazy 100k at the age of 16, like, you may not hit 100k exactly on the days, but that doesn't matter. That's not what you're worrying about. You're worrying about the process it takes to get there, and how you can actually get yourself much closer than you ever thought of, than you would have if you just never told yourself that, never kind of affirmed that to yourself. So it's a very important part to remember.
Shoot for the stars.
Shoot for the stars, and you land somewhere. Right?
Land on the moon. It's good enough. Yeah. It's good enough.
100%. So yeah, talk to me about kind of how your perspective on life, and was there any profound changes that you had from being that kid who was making a bit of money and then going from that to actually, you know, you're now on like 300k, pretty good net worth at the age of 16, 17? What was the kind of perspective shifts you had, the most profound ones? Kind of like I don't know if you had any light bulb moments, or like went from being extremely shy to a bit more confident, or be able to talk in a different way. So what was the most profound changes you had in that, like just that period, not when it comes to like getting close to a million, kind of just in that period where you just made a bit of money, just from the money itself? Did you have any profound changes, or?
So I obviously started to elevate my lifestyle. You know, I handled all the bills, and so on. I got myself the car. Those were immediate things that, you know, to me were very, very high priorities.
Let's talk about that. So the Porsche that you bought.
Yeah.
When was let's talk about the car. So when you bought your first car?
My first car was when I hit that low of 20k.
Yeah.
In February 2018. This was the first crash down to 6,000 when we hit the high of 20.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to keep crashing down forever, and I thought I failed at this. I thought I failed at fucking. What's the word? Project number 10 or number 15?
Tuning project,
yeah. And I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board now because I'm still committed to not going to university.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is the furthest I've ever come. I'm getting a fucking car out of it. Like, there's no way I'm going to exit this thing and not have a car.
So what car was that?
An Audi A3 convertible.
Was that 16 or 17?
2011.
Was that at age 16?
At age 16, yeah.
Did you have your license then, or no?
No, that's the thing.
That's way.
I just needed to hedge because I thought Bitcoin was crashing. And so I bought that in April, and it was April. My bad, not February. But I was at basically the same number back then because Bitcoin was down at 6k in February and in April. It went up and then it came back down, and so that's when I bought the car. I didn't have a license because in the UK you can't get a license until you're 17. So I just parked the bitch on the driveway and turned it on every day.
Just signed it for a while.
That's what I used to do. And that was my life, you know, because I couldn't drive it and it was manual, so I couldn't even try.
You didn't even try.
And to me I knew I loved cars. I wanted the freedom, you know. I mean, I was locked in my bedroom all my life, and I wanted to go out and fucking talk to girls and like have friends, you know, and stuff like that.
That's one thing as well. Like when you were at this period where you, let's say for example, you made your first bit of money. You were still in school at the time, or did you drop it?
No, I was still in school until 17.
Still in school. So while you were still in school before the dropout, we'll go on to that. Did you see yourself becoming a bit more confident with friends, girls, anything like that, or was it kind of the same?
Oh god, girls took me a long time. Well, so the thing is, I really had no confidence, you know, like I couldn't hold eye contact with anybody, you know, and girls were fucking total write-off. Like, worry about that in the next life kind of thing.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Let me at least fucking hold eye contact with a male friend, you know. That's what I was stuck at. And by the way, most of my friends were like this, maybe still are from school. I don't know about now because I don't see them as often, but I mean, I wasn't in the friend group of people that were gifted socially, shall we say.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I started making money, so here's the thing, as a man, when you achieve things that are difficult in any domain, that'll give you confidence, right? Like if you know it's genuinely difficult. So making money is one of them. Fitness is probably the biggest one in my opinion. But you know, when I started to realize that I'm doing this money game pretty well, you know, I'm doing well in this arena, I did get a boost of confidence, you know, because I just felt like I had better abilities than the average person, because I did in terms of financial stuff. It's in the bank statements. I did, you know, there's no denying it. Like, I mean, you know, some people perceive it as like you're being a dick. Well, sure, okay, whatever, but at the end of the day, if the objective is to make money and I managed to make a lot of it, then I'm doing well. And so that gave me, you know, the initial bit of confidence. But actually, most of it only came when I started getting fitter. You know, that was a big thing for me. And I was really fat. I mean, you put the pictures up earlier, but I was 110, 115 kilos at my peak, and about 5'10". You know, I mean, like, I don't know, 170 centimeters. Not very, you know, I mean, tall, but not super tall. And so basically a fat kid, like a really, really fat kid. and that needed to stop for me to gain the confidence. So that was the main thing. And so I don't think I really built confidence until long after I left school and I started traveling. That's kind of when that happened for me. That was a big battle.
So let's talk about kind of in this period we're going from like decent money, 50k, 100k to 300k, a bit more. when in that period, where did you start the business side to what you were doing, so not just trading? And how much would you say kind of in your mind, in your journey, why did you start the business and not just stick with trading? Why was the business started? How was it started? Why did you think to start teaching at such a young age? Kind of what was your mindset going into, kind of your thought process going into starting a business rather than just trading?
There was no thought process, bro. This was the fuck it moment where the dude contacted me, wanted to be a customer. I was like, I can't afford you, but you know, let's do it together. And he just said yeah, and so it just happened. It just happened.
Do you want to say who it is or not?
I don't. Did I get his name? I do know his name, but I shouldn't say it.
Yeah.
He dropped off a long time ago. He dropped off in the bear market of 2018. So I was only working with him for like 6 months, something like that. He ended up getting arrested in Thailand for weed that was planted on him.
Oh, God,
he didn't even have the weed. It was horrible. Just the police put it on him, and he didn't pay the bribe. So he went to jail for 3 months, which is like the standard.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of when, you know, he came back, and we were still in a bear market, and he's like, "Fuck this! I'm not part of the picture anymore." But yeah, I mean, he was the guy that started it, and so it wasn't really me wanting to get into education. I was just like, "This looks like a good cash cow. Like, it looks like something I can milk. I don't really have to do anything because I'm not the trader. I'm just promoting it, you know."
Yeah.
But then obviously, as I started to see like, shit, this is making money. I got interested in learning how to trade and learning how to analyze, and I went through all of those, and that was a hell of a journey in itself. This podcast can triple in length if we talk about that, because it was a very, very rough journey trying to become a good trader. But I realized that I should probably focus on that, because while this guy is delivering the service, I should know about it too, because we are 50-50 partners. So I started to learn more and more about it, and I got good at it. He was still, you know, for the most part, at least slightly better than me. But you know, we did start to level out a lot more in terms of skill, and then I just kept going with it. I mean, it was cool. It's rewarding. I mean, you know, when you have people that join your exclusive circle and they make a shitload of money, and then they thank you for it. Yeah, I mean, it's cool, you know, and so that was interesting, and obviously it was paying well.
So you say paying well at the age of like 15, 16. What was it? Kind of like what was the?
Well, so I hit a net worth at the peak in 2017. I was worth like $80,000.
Yeah.
And that was from 5, you know, earlier that year. So it was quite a fucking increase. You know, I mean, it went quite well. So so that'll give you some perspective of it. But a lot of this would have been, you know, only perhaps 10 or 20K of revenue, and then I traded it and made it a little bit more, and then Bitcoin ran up and made it a lot more. You know, I mean, if I trade 20K up to 27, and then 27 triples, you know, I'm already basically banging on the door of 80K, something like that.
100%.
So that's kind of how it, you know, and that's why when people ask me like how you make money, okay, you know, first of all, make something. You know, you can't go from $0 a month to, you know, $1 million. You need to have a few $1,000s coming in. You know, you need a job, ideally. Like, you need to work. Fuck me, like, do some work, right? Like, as if that's a shocking thing. But a lot of people, they're surprised by that. And then, you know, you roll that into investments and trades, and you compound it, and you multiply it. You know, that's where the power is. But you first need some cash. You know, you can't do this with $200. You know, you need something.
So what was the, if you could summarize it, like, to keep it short, because obviously like this can be a long ass video if we talk about the whole trading journey. But if you were to summarize going from having the job you'll be working for a trader and being in that space, to going from that to being a trader where you're extremely confident in yourself and making a lot of money on probably 300, 400k net worth. Now you're starting to really blow up the channel, that kind of stuff, teaching about it, and that's not just doing it for yourself. What was that kind of? What are some things you took away? Something that was very profound. Something that kind of switched that flip to kind of change it all for you, anything like that when you were in that period?
The main thing was the bear market coming around in the beginning of 2018, and me realizing that I'm not a good trader. When I managed to run my net worth up to 80, I thought I was a genius, and obviously that stopped all desire to learn. It was only when that was stripped away from me, and you know, I had to face reality, you know, cold staring at myself cold in the mirror kind of thing, is when I realized that shit, you know, like this isn't gonna work this way. And it was also the pressure of I believe that was when I was finishing my GCSEs. I can't remember, the dates are all jumbled up in my head now, but you know, there's something about school, and I had to take it seriously, or you know, really pull the trigger on dropping out kind of thing. And and so it was out of necessity that I needed to pull something out of my ass quickly, and something big and profound. And What it ended up being was, as a trader, we all, if you're a trader, you're doing it because you're lazy and you don't want to work for your money, so you want to trade your way to make your money, which is totally cool.
Yeah.
You actually, one of the big things that people don't even think about as a trader is that in order to make money as a trader, you need to anticipate demand. And anticipating demand means putting your money in products which people will want in the future.
Yeah.
So effectively, you're investing in the future.
Yeah.
You're funding the future. And there's absolutely no other interpretation to this. Like, you can try going about this with other, perspectives, and you'll always come back to the same conclusion: is unless you're like literally manipulating the market or doing something illegal, the only way to make money as a trader, if you're going long, by the way, if you're going short, it's slightly different, but it can still be something that helps society. But especially if you're going long, as in buying, you have to put your money behind things that is going to be good in the future. But anyway, that's not what's going through your head when you start trading. What's going through your head is just pure fucking greed.
Yeah, of course. For sure.
Yeah, and so and that, by the way, that's the beauty of capitalism, is that you're motivated by pure selfish greed, but you still can't not help other people. Most likely, unless you do something very unethical or you break the law. And most people don't do that. Most people are actually a lot more clean than that. So they're going to try and find ways to get rich by helping people. For sure. Which is why capitalism has worked so well. But anyway, back to the question. That was kind of it, actually. I think I've already answered that. Yeah.
So, what was the shift for you? Kind of in this time you were making a bit of money, did you ever have the thought of you wanted to have a business rather than just making money, or was it all just didn't really care about the business side?
It was always the business was always just on the side of the trading, And,
so you never had any real, because for me it was kind of thing where I didn't, especially when I started out, didn't know much. I just knew that I didn't when it came to ways of making money, I wanted to have a way where it was like a real business people could respect. Respect was a big thing for me back in the day. Like it was still is, like in a way where I wanted to have something where I'd be proud to talk about it and what I'm doing. So that's when like drop shipping, because obviously I looked into a lot of it as well when I was getting started when I was 17. Drop shipping, Amazon FBA, forex trading, all sorts of stuff like that. Essentially trading as well, but I just didn't really fully go into it. So when it comes to, for example, let's take drop shipping for an example. It's like, if I did well, because I know that we'd eventually do well in everything that we try. So if I did well with drop shipping, I made a bit of money, people started to realise, people would ask me, what do I do? And I'd have to say, for example, if it was drop shipping, I'd have to say, well, I sell products to people online from China. And then to me that just wasn't an extremely respectable thing for me I didn't want to have that as my thing where I tell people that's how I made money. So then that's when I found my business model that I got started in, which was SMMA, having an agency or a service-based business. Obviously it was like crowned as SMMA. Just having a service-based business where I didn't need to put in money and I could not do the work myself, I could just give somebody else. That was perfect. That's why I started with it. So for you, did you have any sort of thing, same sort of like a perspective in it, or like this thought process or goal where you wanted to be respected as a business owner, not just a person that made money?
I think I was aware of how that is something to consider, but for the most part, it wasn't something that guided my actions.
Yeah.
For a few reasons, one reason is I didn't care too much. Another one is, a person's character is defined most of the time a lot more than just by how they make money. Yeah. Plumbers can be very, very well off. Yeah, sure. And most people would say that's not a desirable job. But they'll make a lot of money and they'll still be cool people that you'll have a beer with, kind of thing. Yeah. So, that was also something. And then the other one was, I knew I'd get onto things that are much more respectable in conventional terms later on in life. I just needed to make money at the beginning. It was like survival. It was getting out of a rut kind of thing at first. So that's kind of what guided my actions. Also, I feel like I got some level of satisfaction out of knowing that, people that had trust in me to become my customers would, if they also weren't gambling degenerates, and they actually were adults that can, have adult level responsibility in their life, which I don't think the bar for that is super high, but I mean, just don't be an idiot that goes all in on Luna, something like that. If you have some level of, learned financial discipline, or if you don't, just that you're willing to learn it from me because I teach that too, then I knew that, anyone would kind of, pull it around and become competent. and so I did get some of that satisfaction already as well. So that combination of things is why I wasn't looking for more of it.
Yeah. So when you got to these kind of numbers where you were quite comfortable with your money, for example, let's fast forward to the time where you bought your first dream car, your Porsche. Was that after you dropped out or before you dropped out?
That was after I dropped out.
So let's shift it back to before you dropped out. What was the main driver for you that just pushed you to actually go through with dropping out? Because obviously it's a big thing. How was the experience for you with your parents, with the teachers? What was dropping out like for you? How did it lead up to it? Was there some sort of like milestone you hit or something that you did to think like, okay, this is it, I'm going to do it now, kind of thing? And just talk about dropping out, because obviously that's going to be a big thing for a lot of kids, especially the guys in the winner circle who are like 15, 16, 17, 18, or even in university. After they make the first bit of money, they want to drop out. So
I got no problem with a young person wanting to drop out as long as they've completed their core education. If you have a good level of understanding of math, English, and science, ideally, so the soft, what do you call them, like soft sciences too, like sociology,
social sciences.
Yeah, social sciences, stuff like that. If you got a good understanding of these things, and you want to drop out, the only other thing that I would look at is, are you truly doing something that's sustainable? And you really have to be honest with yourself about that. Most people won't, so you should assume that the answer is no, and then try and justify a yes. And then number two, if everything goes to shit, can you live at a good lifestyle for at least 2 years? You and your mother and your father, whatever, whoever's living in your house, your brothers, sisters, dog, can everyone survive if tomorrow you stop working as well as everybody else in your house and there's an apocalypse? Can you survive for 2 years, kind of thing? If you can't say yes to that, get the idea of dropping out far out of your head. You're not ready yet. If you can, because anything before that, it's just irresponsible. And if that upsets you, because I know it upset me when I heard about this, because I was nowhere near that. I was thinking that's way too far. It did upset me, but you know what? It just meant that I had to get back to the drawing board. And yeah.
So let's talk about so the dropping out part. When it came to actually dropping out, was there a certain number you hit that confirmed it in your mind? So that number was a 2 years thing. Was there any sort of thing that happened in your life? Any experience you had? What led you to actually going full force and saying to your mum dropping out, actually going through with it in the school?
It was it was seeing that I was listening. I was looking at a lot of stories of people that dropped out, and I was filling myself with that success porn. And I was thinking, I can pull this off. I also, my previous boss, the one that paid me that $2,000 for the YouTube work, I can't remember if he dropped out or not, but to me he was a very, very smart guy. I still believe he is, and I took his word as being, he was a mentor to me in some ways, and he was very vocally against school too. There's this one video on YouTube about dropping out of school. I think it's like a music video of like an emo dude with long red hair. I don't know if you've seen it. That video is one of the things that pushed me over the edge.
Really?
But really what it was I got back from Dubai, and I felt great and all that, and then I was threatened with the detentions, and I was like, I can't be spoken to this way anymore.
Yeah, I had the same exact thing. So from that, do you feel like ego was a driver for you to be comfortable enough and confident enough to say, I'm dropping out, and actually go through with it?
It was one aspect of it, man, because at that time, because money was so new to me, it was the only thing on my fucking mind, and one of the things that I would do in order to measure myself up was I would walk into a room, and it was actually kind of, I'm not super proud of it looking back, but I mean, I really was fucking desperate, when I was younger. This is a very big part of my story. Thank God I wasn't hungry or anything like that when I was younger. I was actually a fat kid. But, that's another sign of being poor in itself, to be honest, because, now it's, now you're poor if you're fat, not if you're skinny. But anyway, that was the kind of desperation I was coming at this from. So I'd size myself up. I'd walk into a fucking bakery and be like, all right, this is the manager of this is the salary of the manager, the bakery person, and the waiter, and I'm making more than all of these people, kind of thing. And that's what I was thinking about. And when that transferred to teachers, I was thinking, look, the objective of school is to get you a university degree. Let's be honest, it's not, it's nothing really beyond that. Once you're towards the end of school, is to get you a university degree, and the objective of that is to get a job that pays you, and then you pay back your debt and you start making money. And I was already way ahead of that game, so for me to have to do homework instead of my real work that's making money for me and my fans, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's why it was a totally easy decision for me to, you know, when these people, I never said any of this out loud because I knew it was, you know, not nice things to think. I just couldn't, that's just where my mind was at the time. You know, I couldn't take being spoken to like that. It was very quick. It was like 3-4 days later. I wrote a letter. My mum had no say in it anymore. She had to sign it, but I was like, look.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
She must have been really against it. Like,
no, at the very end, she just got it. She just
really?
accepted it. Yeah, it was just silent defeat.
So that's a big thing as well. So a lot of people who are in that situation would love to know like what you did to convince your mum, like just for her to be somewhat okay with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't. I couldn't, you know, I mean, she wasn't okay with it even at the end. You know, the few days before, the week or two before, it was still, you know, quite big fights. It wasn't pleasant, bro, but you know, one of the things that it actually came to, man, was I looked back in September of 2017 when I hit $10,000 for the first time, and both my parents told me to quit and don't go back to crypto and just take your money because you're going to lose it kind of thing, and they were horribly wrong. And I looked back and I started to realize this is fucking 2018, you know, or 2019 now or whatever. Like, you know, I mean, the world is different to the world that my parents grew up in, and it's not different by like, you know, the standard 20 years difference that you might have seen before. Like, no, like 1 year now, or I guess 5 years ago, or even now, yeah, the world changes really quick these days. I mean, like, you know, if you stop paying attention for 5 years, you know, like, and you want to be a business owner or an entrepreneur or something, you're going to be so out of touch with the world. It wasn't really like that in the past. It wasn't like that when my parents were growing up, so I realized there are just limits to what they know versus what I know. And I realized I started to get mentors. This is around the time I became friends with Tate. Andrew Tate, many of you guys will know him. So I was friends with him way back, like before he got super famous. He was already well known at this time, but he wasn't like he is now. And so I kind of had him as a mentor. I even started doing business with him and stuff like that. We were pretty close for a time, and so I had good role models, man. And I started to think about how, you know, my mum and dad are both not rich. They've never been rich, you know, by Dubai standards. The bar is actually pretty low in Dubai, in my opinion. By Dubai standards, my dad was well off, you know, for some time, but even he ended up losing his wealth. So, I mean, the cold, hard truth is my parents didn't know the game of money. It's just that simple. And I realized that, shit, I do, though. You know, I know how this game works. I'm doing it. Maybe I'm having a lucky run, but I'm doing very well so far. And I've got all these people around me that you know, are... And so each of these things were just making me even more sure that I have to drop out. At the end of the day, you know, when someone's saying stuff like, I don't know if X will tolerate me saying this, if it's like a toxic relationship with a romantic partner or a toxic friendship or a parent or a teacher, if you're worried about what someone else will say will say to you in response, it's almost always just a reflection of your conviction. Because I feel like if I go into a room and I want something like that now, I just say I'm having it and that's it. Like, I'm having it and it's not up for debate. And it's because, you know, like, people will respect you if you command, you know, like what you want, and you can only command it when you have that self-respect. Like, it's a cycle that you got to break into, and the way you break 100%. Into it, the way you get that breakthrough is you first make the cash, you first get fit, you know, you do the difficult thing that gives you that confidence. So anyway, I got to that point where I had just want to check if the recording.
Sorry.
Okay. I got to that point where the confidence was going up, and you know, it became harder for my mom to fight me on it. And then I became friends with someone that you know very well, who was actually finishing up a PhD at the time, and we became very close friends. And this person enlightened me on the world of education. I mean, a PhD, like, and it was in science, by the way. And like, there's nothing I respect more than someone that pursues an education in STEM. Specifically, you know, biology, chemistry, physics. To me, that's like the ultimate, like, top tier of respect that I have for a person's profession. And this person was acing it at the top of the food chain in terms of education. Far more educated than any of the teachers I ever had a chance to speak to. And this person was telling me, look, if you worked out how to make money and you don't want to study a STEM subject in university, then drop out and leave. And this person was very, very firm on it. and this person was firm at the same time that my previous boss was firm on it. At the same time that I'm pretty sure I asked Tate about it as well, or something like that. And he's a G. I mean, to have him, mate, he's the reason I bought the Porsche. Yeah. I was on the fence about it. I couldn't totally afford it. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, that's kind of it. You know, when I had all these green lights coming at me, I became more sure. The final thing that I needed was to realize that because my parents don't know everything, and because I know more than them about finances, and because I am their only child who's becoming an adult now, there has to be a time where I step into being a man, and I make decisions for myself. And part of being a man and making decisions for yourself, if you're trying to be a high-functioning man, is sometimes you got to put your fucking balls on the line and take a fucking risk. It's got to happen. And the risk might go badly, the risk might go very well. You're going to do your best to make the risk go well. You're going to make it a calculated risk. You're going to put things in your favor. But at the end of the day, you're taking that risk, gents. And that's what it's about. That's what makes you a man. And I realize I'm never going to get the green light on this. You know, especially from a mother. A woman is a protective figure that doesn't want things to go wrong. They don't understand risk like men do. Men perhaps don't even understand risk either because they take a lot of stupid risks. But I reason that, you know, taking this from my mum is she's just not qualified on this anymore. Yeah, sure. and I need to create the qualification for myself.
100%. So that was a big thing for me as well. Obviously, I didn't drop out of school. If you guys who knew my journey, I didn't drop out of school, so to say, high school. I dropped out at a time. I kind of dropped out of the education system when it was time to go to university. So I had a somewhat prolonged version of Sami's story, where I did finish school, and my biggest debate wasn't dropping out; it was not going to university. So it was in a time where I was doing well. I was doing well at this point, and I came back from Dubai. Dubai, I think for both of us was a big kind of like a perspective changer. Kind of changes the view you have in the world and what you can accomplish and what you are meant to do. So for me, it was a big thing where I came back and I was really, like, after exams, I was really struggling with the fact of do I go to university. Obviously for Sami, was do I drop out. So a lot of guys will be in those two positions, guys and girls. So for me, I think the biggest thing. So from what you said, the biggest things were definitely kind of your environment, who you had available to talk to. So that's something very big, which is why connecting with people online that will not be in your immediate circle, but just be available to talk to, just people that online now, especially this is why, for example, like I started my winner circle, Sami started his education thing. It's because people know that it's like people at this level, they know that you can't really get to an amazing place just by yourself. And you can't really make big decisions for yourself when you never have before, unless you have people around you to kind of help you at least. It's the accountability and everything like that as well. Just having people in front of you that you can actually see that change the game for you. So that's a very, very, very important thing to mention, is that if you want to succeed as a young entrepreneur, especially when you're young, you have nobody else in your immediate life to kind of make that shift for you or kind of help you and be in the same mind space as you. So online is the best place to go. So if you are an entrepreneur, young entrepreneur, get yourself and find yourself a community online. You know, that's why I started the winner circle, to be that thing for the me of 2 years ago, which is like everybody else is starting at 15, 16, 17. Or having people online that you can talk to, people that you know are kind of in the positions that you want to be in. Very, very powerful thing to have at a young age, and then kind of change the game for you. So for me, the biggest thing when it came to leaving the education system, leaving the average life, was I got told by a friend of mine who's a life coach. He told me something which is very profound. He said, do you want to live your life being of service to, so the big thing for me was, the context is, the biggest thing for me was when I was going to university was, I'm making my parents sad or happy if I go. That was the big thing, is if I do this for my parents, or for myself. I knew for sure I didn't want to go to university, but it was my parents that was the big kind of like question for myself in my head for months. I really had big battle about it. So this one sentence kind of changed it all for me. It was, do you want to be of service to your parents, or do you want to please your parents? And the big distinguishing factor between being of service and pleasing is that being of service, sometimes they will not be pleased by what you do to be of service to them. Being of service is doing what you know maybe not won't make everybody happy, but they will see that what you did was extremely valuable to them, and
which is the deepest, most difficult part of being a man, in my opinion.
100%, yeah, 100%.
That's the pressure that all men take on when they're fucking born, is that eventually they're gonna have to stand up and do really hard shit that they're not gonna be appreciated for, and they're just gonna have to do it, because if they don't, nobody else will.
And that's a big thing as well. Like that's the thing that Sami mentioned before when it came to you were the only child that can really make a difference. I had very similar kind of like a thing that kept going on in my head where, like, if I don't do this, my family, like, they aren't going nowhere. Like, we're stuck, because both of our families were in pretty terrible situations financially, and for me, you know, bless my sisters, but you know, they weren't going to be the ones who were going to become millionaires, change the family's life, make our lives luxury, or not even luxury, just anything that was good. You know, not where I have to worry about money every single day. So yeah, I knew that I had to be the one, and it was not going to happen. Initially, I thought it was going to happen through university and getting a job. To give some context, I wanted to do computing science, not for the sake that I liked computing science at all. It's just because I thought that's where the money was, tech. Then I got a job, a degree apprenticeship, which is where a company puts you through a degree. So it's probably the best thing I could ask for when it comes to university. And then the two things that pushed me so far away and kind of like wrote the whole idea of education system off were that line that I told you, the being of service to your parents, not pleasing them, and also talking to somebody who's been in that space for a long time. Obviously, just being a software engineer at that specific company for like 25-30 years, the guy said. He was a guy who interviewed me while I was going through the process, and I asked him how life was, because for me, my life and my perspective on how life should be and what I wanted my life to be was kind of like, just like an entrepreneur, I wanted to be able to progress through, like a very, very good corporate employee, like progress through positions, but like have leadership, be a leader, be a manager, progress to like CTO or CEO, have my own startup, whatever it may be. But I realised that kind of dream in the corporate world is very scarce, if not like pretty much impossible. Or not impossible, but it's very, very rare. And I realised this after talking to like not just that guy who worked there for 25 years, but different people. And I was just, it crossed my dream completely. And that was where those two things for me were the things where, like, you need to understand that if you're trying to be of service to your parents, your family, even yourself, you can't just do what is comfortable and what you know is right and not right, what you know is the thing the norm, for example, or what you know will please your parents and make them happy in the short term. If you know that you're capable, which you are, of changing your family's life and making big money, and you can't do that through university, then go ahead and I think it's time to, if it's obviously you have to have something to back up as well, so never drop out in my opinion, never drop out unless you have something that you know will go well for you if you put your mind to it. Until you have that something, don't just drop out with saying like, I want to try a few things and see what happens. Do that, just push yourself while you're in university or school to find that thing, and then when you find that thing, you, for example, have some proof of concept, bit of money, you have another process.
I just want to add, dropping out is not something to do in order to scale your business.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like that's something I heard a lot, is like, I'm making 3K a month now, but if I drop out, I'm going to have an extra 8 hours a day, and then I can scale that from 3 to 8. Like, no, you fucking hit 8 first.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you don't hit 8, you triple 8, you hit 24 first, and then you drop out.
Yeah. Something very, very powerful that I recommend to every single student in general, that's probably the best thing to do, even if you have a job, is how much you'll gain out of working the same as if you weren't in university or didn't have that commitment, that full-time commitment, which is school, university or job. If you work and get the same success, or if you work just as hard, if not even harder, with your business while being in university or school with a full-time commitment, you are growing yourself. So like, you're just doing such an intense amount of work that you'll be able to grow yourself in such crazy ways. You'll develop yourself in such insane ways. Be able to understand your limits when it comes to working. You'll know what it means to get into deep work. You'll understand deep work. You'll understand your sleeping routines. You'll have habits. You would have been through the gutter. You would have been through the worst side of working, which is just every single day the hustle, like barely getting any sleep. You would have had that, and it's an extremely powerful thing to have in your kind of like belt, so to say, like on your belt. You have that thing where you've had that period of your life, maybe a year, maybe less than that, where you've just been a hustler, man. You just hustle for day in, day out. You just like, you've been in a really bad place mentally, but you still just push through. If you have that, it's insane. So that is why, like what Sami said, you don't just leave university, leave the education system, or leave that comfort without the proof of concept, or like not even the proof of concept. It's just like, if you're in the mental space where if you drop out, you weren't going to waste time. If you drop out, you're going to work double as hard as you would have.
100%.
Yeah, that's really
non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Yeah. Like, people think dropping out is like, your life's going to be a bit easier, you have more time to relax, but if you drop out, your mindset has to be like, you're going to work double as hard as you would have. Like as much time as you would have put into university, you triple that, and that's what you do for your business instead. So life, when you drop out, isn't easy. People think that it's a lot simpler, like things would be so much easier if you drop out. Yes, to a certain extent it gives you a bit of freedom, but your life should be even harder if you drop out, You need to push yourself, and if you don't do that, and if you're not prepared to do it, then don't drop out. Stay inside until you are.
Stop romanticizing it. You don't deserve it at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I mean, I got to be harsh about this.
Yeah, you have to be harsh, man. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Because this is not like, it's not even about dropping out. Like I think, you know, if you're not going into something that genuinely requires a degree, that there's absolutely no reason to stay in school beyond those basic education things. But even then, I feel like it's something you should earn, because at the end of the day, when you drop out, you're earning freedom, which is like, there's nothing more valuable than freedom.
Time freedom. Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think because of that, yeah, you need to be clearing a big amount of headroom before we, you know, before we even start looking at, you know, maybe I can drop out or something like that.
Sure. So when it comes to dropping out, so that's extremely valuable for the people who are wanting to drop out, not just sure about it. So you have to just, if you want to drop out and you're in that space, you have to push yourself harder than you ever thought you had to push yourself. You really have to become a machine. Like, if you really want to succeed, it doesn't even matter about the business you're starting at that time. It could completely flop and you start something else. But if you're trying to succeed at life and win at life, you have to push yourself in that space where you're pushing yourself, you're testing your limits, you're setting new limits, you're building and having a real structure to your life, habits, routines. You're not just benefiting your business, but your life, your self-development, reading, fitness. You're doing something that really benefits you. And then from that, those skills and that you've cultivated and those habits, that mindset you have now, will then push you to be successful in whatever business you start. Doesn't matter if you started with YouTube, you failed at that, you went to go to trading, you went to business, doesn't matter what it is. If you truly go through a phase at the start, before your journey even starts, like money-wise, if you go through a phase of really pushing yourself through it and testing your limits and seeing how you are, like seeing who you really are as a person, and understanding how you can work and how you can succeed, you can take that person and put them in any space, in any industry, and they'll do well. So that's something that I say to everybody. Like, one big thing that I would have told myself in this kind of like period where they're starting to do well, but they want to be really successful, is stop putting as much focus on, keep the same focus on your business, but double your time and focus, double that focus on yourself as well, especially when you're like 15, 16, 17, because the ROI that you'll see, I'm sure you'll agree, the ROI that you'll see from becoming an intellect or growing yourself personally and just in the world in a better perspective, and being more conscious of everything, having good habits, and just being a good person, sort of like just being productive and being efficient, that's like probably one of the most important things, much more than money at a young age. If I had a son, we'll talk about this later on, but if I had a son, I'd much prefer he made nothing, but at the age of like 18, he made nothing, but he's a machine. Like, whatever he puts his mind to, he just kills it. Even if it fails, and the whole if he started something that just was made to fail, even if he did that, he still attack it with like 100%, 110% effort, and be consistent and be all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm sure we both agree that before dropping out, you want to make sure, and you're going to be at such a massive benefit and advantage, if you push yourself rather than pushing for money straight away. So yeah, big thing, 100% big thing. So let's fast forward now. So you've dropped out. That whole thing went. It's just that it's kind of like nothing crazy happened in that process, is it? Like nothing.
No, it was actually super underwhelming, man. I thought they would do like a fight
drama.
Or something. Yeah.
Indian drama shows, so like
exactly.
Spoons being dropped, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, with my mom, it was like like I said. I mean, it came to the end, and I started just lost all of her leverage, and I just I just stopped listening to her totally. I wasn't being a dick, by the way. I mean, I feel I'm still always a good son. But yeah, I was out, bro, and she knew it, so she wrote this letter for me, and that was it. One day, I just stopped going in school. Sometimes I still wake up thinking, shit, I gotta go to school. Like, that's how fucking traumatized I am, bro. And then I went, oh, shit, I'm free. Okay, let's do whatever the hell I want. But yeah, it was like that at the beginning, and it kind of didn't feel like anything. It was like when I made my first $1 million, man. It was like, oh shit, okay. We're here now. And then, and then what? So is there a group chat? Like,
so when you dropped out, what number were you at? When you
I don't know, man. But I do remember that I have actually tracked this, but I was either at 100 or 300. But I know that 3 months later, or something like 3 to 6 months later, I had tripled it. So whether it was 100 or 300, it was triple. Yeah. Which is a big difference. I think it was probably 300 by that point, because I remember that I made my first $1 million that year, months afterwards. Yeah, so I think it was from 300 to 900, and then obviously crossing the $1 million was, percentage-wise, it's not as difficult as the first 900. And that was, yeah, that was the kind of, you know, and that's where I started to, you know, travel and finally, you know, gain some confidence. By this point, I was, you know, driving, so I was outside of the house. I wasn't eating my mother's food anymore. You know, Pakistani food is an absolute write-off if you're trying to be anything close to healthy or not obese. I love it. It's the best cuisine in the world. Pakistani Indian food it is hands down the best cuisine. If anyone disagrees, they just haven't eaten enough.
Haven't eaten the good stuff.
Yeah, they haven't eaten the good stuff. But I had to stop, and you know, I got my license. I started getting fitter, so that's where life got a lot more fun. I started to travel. I took my first vacations, and then yeah, you know, the Porsche.
So what was first? What was first when you dropped out? What was like the first, like, because you obviously have a bit more freedom, you start to make a lot more money. What was the first kind of like a way you kind of like kind of dived into your desires? I mean, like, just like you fulfilled something.
It wasn't anything crazy, bro. It's not like one day suddenly changed. The thing is before I dropped out, I was already taking days off, like a lot, very often. Just like I'd wake up and be like, I'm not going to fucking school today. And this would have happened like 2-3 months before. You know, I just woke up and, you know, and it was always on the days with PE because I was a fat fuck. And it was, you know, it was just whenever I felt like I'm not going. And it was, again, it was just very hard for, you know, I mean, again, like, you know, white kids don't get this, but like when a Paki mum is shouting at you and telling you something.
It's intense, man.
Yeah, it's fire,
Shit,
bro.
Man.
So, you know, I mean, like, if you can get to the point where your mother doesn't have that control anymore, you know, you're dead or out of the house, or you've done something very impressive. And unfortunately for me, it was the last one. So that's kind of what it came down to, and so yeah, it wasn't like there was a big change when I dropped out. It's exactly what you said, bro. I just kept on working, doing my thing. I blew up. I mean, I tripled my net worth after that within the next month. So obviously it worked really, really well.
So did you have, or from your memory, did you have like somewhat like a routine, something that you did every day?
No.
In a way where, did you have like a, what were you doing? What was your work that you were doing in that time you dropped out of school? What were you doing?
It's always actually been relaxed. You know, as a trader, my actual time spent working, so to speak, is not very high. It's minutes per day, you know, I mean, it's no more than like 30 minutes or something, maybe 40 at a push. But I'm thinking about it all the time, you know, so no, I've never really had a routine up until like this year, pretty much.
Were you making videos every day, for example?
Yeah, you know, I would do the basics. I'd make my video every day. I'd fulfill my requirements. I'd give my, you know, I'd fulfill my service to my customers and so on. But for the most part, I just had to think and think clearly. I was reading books. But all of this was pretty much whenever I felt like I had to do it. You know, it wasn't like by a shit. This is one of the big things I hated about school, bro, was that I had to live by a structure that someone else set. So for a long time, because I was immature, I just rejected any idea of structure. I was like, I'm not doing this. It's gonna make me feel like I'm in school, which was very stupid looking back. But I mean, I just learned how to work so efficiently when I was younger that, you know, I mean, I get a lot done. You know,
how do you think, what was the, if you can remember, what was the main thing that helped you work efficiently? That's probably the biggest problem a lot of kids, especially me, is that this is why I hired a performance coach straight away as soon as I could. Like, first made like 3K or something, I straight away hired a performance coach.
That's good, yeah.
Because I knew that being able to work was just such a big like bottleneck for me. I just didn't know how to set my mind something and stick to it for like a few hours to just do anything.
Look, when you're trying to do some work, a lot of the time, like, you know, you really just need to think about, are you doing something which is directly going to produce results? You know, so the best example in your standard, you know, little business that a young person is forming is, you know, the main thing that's going to get you a client is, that's going to get you paid is getting a client. So guess what, mate? Time to pick up the phone and make some cold calls, you know, or write some cold emails. There's no easy way through this. You know, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and get dirty. And it's just about robot mode, mate. I mean, you just switch on the, you know, no procrastination. It's not difficult, and it's really, I mean, it's super straightforward. People just complicate it. Like, you know, I mean, if you're looking for a logo or something ridiculous like that, you know what I mean? Like, you're just not in the, you know, you're not focusing on the right thing.
So a lot of kids get started, when they get started, they kind of hold themselves up, and because I was the exact same. I don't think I wasn't the exact same. I wasted probably like 7 months of good time where I had nothing else but I could be running the business.
Same, bro.
So yeah, even me, I was focusing, like I put so much importance on the most random stuff, the website, the logo, even the logo I was spending so much time on. Should I set it up as a company? Like all this like stupid stuff. You know what I mean? Just like making my content for social media looking nice when nobody was even looking at it. Stupid stuff like that. A lot of kids, it's very easy to, and it's probably the most common thing that we all get caught up. We all got caught up in the pointless things. So it's very, very important to be conscious of that, the fact that, and also it's a very good way to have. It's a very good thing to have somebody you can kind of like talk to, like somewhat of a mentor, somebody that's in somewhat of a position that you'd want to be, or just further along the process or journey. Be around people that you can like kind of talk to, because if you're doing all this kind of time wasting activities, not the money generating activities, by yourself, and you're in your own little bubble, nobody's really there to kind of help you. And that was the only thing that really set me apart, or kind of gave me my push to actually going from just like doing work every day, to actually doing work that made me money, was having somebody or people around me, not in real life but online. It was for me, and it would be the same for a lot of you. I had something at least online, like somewhat of a community or environment where I could be around and talk to what I'm doing, talk to them about what I'm doing, and then they would kind of say like, okay, stop wasting time on your website, or just motivate me in some sort of way. Not motivate me, more like inspire me to actually do real work, not just stupid pointless work which you think is real work because you've just never been introduced to the concept of what real work is and deep work is. So that's good, man. That's good. So you feel like you just kind of you feel like you were lucky in any way, or do you feel like you had any periods in your like you said before, like you had times where you were wasting time a lot, you wasted months? Do you have any times where you feel like your mental state was pretty poor, you were demotivated, you were kind of like felt things didn't work? Like, would you talk to us about that?
That was my whole life until I made money, like for the first time for real. I mean, that phase for me lasted. A lot of people that become successful, they get in that, I mean, it's hard to avoid that phase. Most people will suffer it, but they're only in that phase for like, can I continue? Yeah, they're only in that phase for like, I mean, months, if not like 1 or 2 years max, right? And then they'll either quit or they'll become successful. For me, that shit lasted like 8 years. You know, like it was a long time that I was constantly like, I was quitting at everything. I quit at YouTube many times. I was a quitter. Yeah, everyone's like, don't give up. Pitch, I was giving up every fucking day. I hated it. Yeah. But I kept coming back because the prize was too special. The prize was freedom. The prize was fucking fast cars and a cool lifestyle, and you know, elevating myself, my family, my fans. So I couldn't stop desiring that prize, and it just when I was approaching, when the doors of, you know, university or the flashy life were approaching, getting closer and closer as I was growing up, I just felt more and more pressure that I had to make it work. So that's kind of, that's how it worked for me.
Sounds good. So let's fast forward, or I'm not sure how long it was. Let's actually talk about that, kind of to when you bought your first car, not your first car, but the car of your dreams at the time. So your Porsche. We'll throw up a video of you buying your first Porsche and actually receiving it. And taking handover. But what was that? That's a big thing for a lot of people. People like dreams to do that like 30, 40, like even same with me. So what was that like for you, buying your dream car, which was a Porsche, at that age?
You know, one of the objectives in, you know, when I was starting out, when I saw this life calendar was, you know, I realized that, you know, like you're only going to be like super healthy and in your biological prime up until like age 25 to 30, depending on your gender and various other factors and so on. And so I figured, you know, I mean, I want to be healthy and doing well while I'm young, and I want to enjoy cool things while I'm young. I was also looking at channels like, you know, Jon Olsen, the Swedish dude that's like fucking partying with beautiful models on yachts all the time. That's just his YouTube channel. Just like cool. That might not be I might be getting the name wrong, but they're always like charismatic Nordic dudes. So anyway, I was watching channels of guys like them, and I'm like, look, I can be rich and 40, but I'm not going to be able to do this. You know, like jump off a fucking yacht in the Mediterranean, you know, and go down a slide and so on. You know, that really cool life. So I was like, I need to make money when I'm younger. So you know, it was a big objective for me to get the Porsche very quickly. There's a funny story behind it, actually. One of my staff members, who you know, doesn't work for me anymore, but he is you know, another one of my very close friends. You know, still one of my closest friends. He actually is about 6 months older than me, and I hired him, but because of that age gap, he was able to get insured on better cars than me, and I was paying him, you know, relatively well, so he was able to afford a very nice car, a high performance car that was far more powerful than mine. And one day, some motherfucker, because I live in London, or lived in London, thank God, don't live there anymore. Some dude came and stole my wing mirror from my first Audi.
That's deep, man.
Yeah, and it was my only car at the time, and you know, I mean, I couldn't drive it. It was my driver's side wing mirror, and it's just gone, so I couldn't drive. And I was very upset because this person took my freedom away with that move, and I was super depressed. So Dan, I'm sorry, I shouldn't mention his name, but anyway, I think everyone knows. Dan was trying to cheer me that day. He drove me around, and again, the context of the fact that he works for me, and he's older is very important now, because when he was trying to cheer me up, one of the things he did was drove me around in the car that I was jealous of, because I could afford it. Obviously, I was paying his salary, so I could for sure afford it, but I couldn't get insured. And so I just really wanted the car, and he took me around. There was this one moment where the cunt floored it onto a motorway from like 20 to 70 miles per hour, and I was like, I can't do this because I'm younger than you, and this is fucking bullshit. Because I'm working so hard, you know, and I'm like doing such intense things. And I can't get it. I was so upset by that. So anyway, yeah, I just kept on running insurance quotes. I could afford it for a while, not comfortably. It wasn't a smart financial decision at the time.
Extremely. Insurance at like 17, 18, 19, even at my stage, I'm trying to get a car. And
it was a hell of a stretch, man. I remember, I think my net worth was like 300k. I don't know if that was pounds or US, and the car was 60. You know, so it's probably pounds that I'm mentioning right now. No, it was probably dollars, and or both. So anyway, that's a lot, you know, like that's like 20% or more of my net worth that would just go to one car, and so it wasn't, you know, necessarily the smartest decision, but I really wanted it, and I couldn't get it financed because I didn't have any family with good credit that I could use, so it would just have to be me. But I was still 17. So anyway, yeah, one day I just got an insurance quote, and I texted Tate, and I only texted him, by the way, because I knew he'd say yes, and I was like, listen, mate, I just got an insurance quote, the car is this much. He's like, send me a link. I sent him the link of the car, and I distinctly remember in all caps, he's like, buy it. He ordered me to buy it.
Tate knows it, man.
Yeah. And I probably went back and forth. I still have the message. We probably went back and forth a little bit. I couldn't really believe what he was saying, but he was very, very firm. He's like, you're gonna make the money back, buy it. It's gonna motivate you, stuff like that. You know, I can't not listen. I got Tate in my fucking contact list. I'm not gonna listen to him. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was like, all right, shit, man, I'm following orders, boss. and I got the Porsche, and yeah, he was bang on right. I mean, after that, I obviously hit 1 million just months afterwards, so it ended up working out.
Best way.
Yeah, best way, bro. Best way. That was a good day. That was a good day. Sure. I flew into Scotland for that, actually, in Perth.
Good, man. Very good. So what was the feeling like? Actually, we'll put the video up of you collecting the car just now.
Yeah.
What was the feeling that you had? Did you have any feeling?
It was actually negativity, mate. I've never told this to anybody, but I mean, yeah, there was the happiness of like I'm taking the car out, but then the camera was on me as I was taking and I'm sure you're playing that footage right now. I don't think I look too bad in that video now, but 17-year-old me was very fucking self-conscious, and I knew I looked fat in that video shot. Yeah, exactly. There was no good angle of me back then. I was so self-conscious. I was raised in the social media generation. I got bullied for my looks. So this was like the biggest thing that I was, you know, like that I had low confidence about. So as I was taking the cloth off the car, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is a nice car. I was acting. I was straight up acting, and I was like, I hope I don't look too fat right now. So it was actually like, even in one of the happiest moments of my life, it was plagued by negativity because of my fitness, or lack thereof. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the car itself is fucking phenomenal, bro. I remember I had never driven a... So, by the way, I ended up buying a second Audi because I couldn't get insured on the Porsche. And this second Audi was also a cheap one compared to the first one. They were only a few £1,000 each, which, you know, for big cars that I bought later on was quite cheap. Because it was the performance car that I could get insured on at the time. That was April. And then I bought the Porsche in June. So that's kind of the timeline of how this went. This is all 2019 now, I think. And yeah, I remember, you know, the first Audi and the second Audi were both manual transmission, and I had always dreamt of the Porsche PDK gearbox, because it's, you know, renowned to be by many driving enthusiasts to be one of the best gearbox in any cars. And I've driven a lot of cars. I've driven like all the major supercar brands, and it is the best. There's nothing that comes close. Ferrari is cool, but it's still not. It's clunky. Ferrari is fun, but it's clunky. And every other brand, McLaren is okay as well. McLaren's actually really good, but that's it. You know, like the rest are, even Lambo, not very good in my opinion. Most of them are not good. Porsche, fucking just lightning, bro.
Yeah,
I mean, it shifts before you press the shift button. And I was reading about this and hearing about this in videos, and I was like, shit, I need to experience this.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll never forget that first drive down. As I was leaving, it was like a 10-hour drive from Perth down to London. I had to stop in Birmingham overnight, and it was absolutely phenomenal. It was amazing, and I still love that car like the first day I got it.
Still got it.
Of course, yeah. That's not going anywhere. It's my baby. It's my first love. It's everything.
The next thing I wanted to talk to you about, after you kind of the journey where you've gone through, you're at a point in life where you've got, as a child you've got most of what you want. You're paying your mum's bills. Your mum's probably much happier now. You've been to Dubai just before you moved, obviously, and now you've dropped out and you have the car. So it's a pretty good point in your life, in your childhood. So
now we need the bitches.
so apart from that, like as a younger kid, from there, were you already quite successful with money? You know, money's kind of sorted. As in, you're basically making money. They're already like automated, or you just know what you're doing. From there, what else and when else did you decide to focus on other stuff? So, for example, fitness, becoming an intellect, reading a lot more books, specific types of books, listening to certain people. I don't know, any people that you've seen online that's kind of like a role model or mentor to you. Anything like that. So, performance mindset. When did you start betting yourself, and what did you do?
That's a good question, bro. It was like pretty quick after I made this, you know, what felt to me like a significant chunk of money, so like above the 300k threshold. I started taking fitness very seriously. Ever since I got my license, though, I was, you know, kind of like, you know, already taking it seriously. I had the pleasure of learning what calories in, calories out means, and just fucking shredded that way. 1 meal a day, fasting became my lifestyle, and actually did very well for me. I completely fucked my metabolism and did a bunch of stupid shit, but I did shred fat, and obviously I needed to. Like, I was literally like over obese. Yep. You know, and now in the healthy weight category. So, you know, to do that much of a change within like 2 years, unless you're really switched on, which I feel I am now, you know, you're not really going to be able to pull that off without like fasting. So that was like that was something that was happening in the background, and it just like ramped up even more, because then I stopped going to school and I could travel, and so I was like eating at better places. When you eat at fancier places, which I was, you know, doing for the first time. I don't like doing that anymore, but you know, I'm back to just my fucking, I mean, you know how I eat, you know, I mean, I'm basic as fuck, but you know, at that time I wanted to try everything, you know, and all the fancy like white people food is always like kind of healthy and light. So that was going on, and then other than that, there was the confidence stuff. I mean, I literally had to teach myself how to like socially communicate with people.
That's a big thing it was the same for me as well. So when I first went to Dubai, it was like my first experience where I was in an environment where like I had to go out and speak to people. Before this, I was never the type of kid to go to any sort of parties. There was like one party I went to in my childhood. Apart from that, I never really went out or had too many friends other than the friends I had on Xbox. So all my interactions or fun times were all like on Xbox or PlayStation. So for you, what did you do, and what do you think helped you the most when it came to kind of coming out of your shell, or just like being a bit more like a charismatic, like interesting guy in real life rather than just in your videos?
Do you know what? Honestly, like, my answer would be different if you asked me this a year ago. But now that I'm on the other side of, you know, I've lived in my shoes now for a decent while. I feel like I have a much better perspective. Like, when I was going through it for the first time and like getting confident for the first time, I didn't really know what was going on. Now that I've got a bit of distance, the main thing that I'd say about the confidence that helped was just like writing over all the negative self-talk that happened for years. And the way I was able to write over that was very unhealthy, because this is super hard to attain. But it was like out of like fans and just like appreciation from the public, or, you know, my followers or my family, my friends, whatever. It was just when I heard enough nice things to counteract all the bad things I heard for years. That was kind of what made me feel like, all right, you know, now I'm in more of the positive than the negative kind of thing. So fucking unhealthy. Like, you know, the better approach would have been to just like, you know, but it gave me the ability to then decide, okay, switch on the confidence, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, that came after first feeling like I had to earn it. So, you know, the other thing to do with earning it was the fitness. I've been harsh on myself, man, like uniquely harsh compared to other people, bro. Like, honestly, I don't think I had to stay in the fucking depression that I was in for as long as I did, and so on. But I mean, it's done very well for me. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Sure.
I can handle the stress for sure.
So when it came to, apart from fitness, when it came to, for example, you mentioned something to me, which is you want to become an intellect when you were quite young. So you took it upon yourself to try to become one.
Yeah.
By reading, by watching people. So when it came to becoming more of a man, becoming more of like an interesting guy, rather than just your training or just what you had before in your childhood, what did you do? What is it? If looking back on that period where you were doing it, was there anything that you tell yourself or stuff like that? So just, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was always pretty interested in other stuff outside of trading. I was interested in that stuff before trading. So actually, when I started, trading and becoming, known for that, like as a YouTuber as well, I pushed that stuff to the side. I just focused more on trading, which was neither a good thing nor a bad thing. Yeah, that interest has always been there, and I think when I managed to get myself a little bit of stability, actually quite a lot of stability, by buying the house for my mom and having all the cars and stuff. But that part's important because that stability actually enabled me to then be like, all right, I can take my hands off this. It's not gonna fall. Now I can go to something else. Yeah.
So what was it that you did that you think made you a lot more charismatic, interesting, knowledgeable, wise? What are some things?
It wasn't necessarily what I did. It was just hearing enough good things to overwrite the bad things, and then if there was any single thing that I did, it was getting fitter. Achieving things that are hard, knowing that this is difficult for people to do. So I can be proud of that.
Yeah, for sure. And during this time, did you feel like you changed your perspective on should you have a structure to your life? Should you have good habits and should you have routines, that kind of stuff? Did you keep the same? No,
not really, man. I resisted structure and routine ever since I dropped out.
Yeah, still
only until like the beginning of this year, as pretty much like very end of last year, 2021. Was kind of when I started to implement structure in my life for the first time. Honestly, I think if you work efficiently, you don't need it.
What does work efficiently mean to you?
Well, it means like doing things that are actually going to produce results. So again, like we were talking about the logo, for example, versus cold emails.
Exactly. It's a big point, but a lot of probably the biggest problem with the majority of we talked about it before, but the biggest problem with the majority of entrepreneurs, especially when they just get started, is they just have a huge obsession over doing the things that don't actually make the money. Because they think that's important, and just do conditioning in probably the world. For some reason, like I had this exact same problem. I'm sure Sami did too. I was focusing on stuff like the website, the logo, like little stupid aesthetic things, or there's loads of examples of it that just aren't actually doing the things that you need to do to actually make the money or move the boat forward to actually get to the point where you're making money. So for sure, yes, something that I think everybody probably has a problem with.
And the thing is, if you have like a full work day that you want to show off on Instagram because you need the validation, you can put in like a 10-hour work day, but if you're really switched on, and you won't be if you're trying to seek validation, but if you are, you'd still only do like 3 or 4 hours of like cold email, cold outreach to get your clients. And the rest of it would again be the pointless work, like the logo stuff. So all I'm saying is let's just get straight to the meat of what's actually going to produce results and worry about the other stuff later, because the problem is if you don't do that, you're going to end up putting so much time into something that might end up failing. And if it ends up failing, well, first of all, you're a fool because you've wasted a lot of time. The second of all, you're going to be very discouraged from doing the next thing, because you know that you invested so much and you got nothing out of it. So there's this quote, it's like fail fast, right? Just fucking accept it, mate. Like you're gonna fuck up. Your first thing is probably not gonna work, and that's like, I mean, maybe it will. Maybe you're special. I mean, if you work hard enough and you don't quit, it might be the case. But I know a lot of people much smarter than me, and they didn't work out, the first time. I certainly fucking didn't. So you want to be able to shortcut your way to that success as fast as possible, and one of the best ways is you just do shit. You do shit that produces results, and you fail, and you learn, and then you take your lessons and you hit the next thing, or you hit the same thing again in a different way.
100%.
That's kind of and so when I talk about working efficiently, I'm talking about stuff like that. The actual stuff that's going to directly produce results.
So during this period where you have a lot of things in your life that you never probably thought you'd have. You have the car, you're not in school anymore, you're taking care of the house. So do you think during this time, it's just the same happened for me in this kind of like phase, second phase after like starting out, where you have your money. For me, it was a big thing where I developed like a big ego. Just to, I'm sure, like, especially after coming back from the holiday in Dubai, as well as not being in school and having the car. What was your kind of journey or perspective on ego, like in this time specifically?
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely had my come up and my come down and the waves and so on. I don't think it got too bad overall, because I was always reminded by people around me and myself and people online that I looked up to stay grounded and so on.
Okay.
I didn't stay grounded,
Yeah.
but I definitely for sure did not fly as high as some of the other people that I know.
For sure.
And it's all part of the. I mean, I feel as long as you're not being a dick, like if you're not like disrespecting waiters and shit like that, like as long as it's not getting to that kind of level and you're not like actually being a bad person or being a cunt, I guess more accurately, then it's totally fine. It's earned ego. A young guy doing well, yeah, you fucking expect him to have a little bit of. I mean, it's just it's healthy.
But do you feel like you had a sense of ego? Because for me, that was definitely the case. Where even though yes, there's some good ego, where in public just makes you a bit more confident, with friends makes you more confident, and you have more conviction. But there's the other side of ego where it's a lot more like malevolent, I guess you could say, in a way where it kind of destroys things in your life a lot.
Yeah,
a lot more than it does actually. It's just a benefit and some fun. Like obviously, yes, there's a side of ego where like just don't be like a dickhead, don't be an idiot, just be a nice guy. Just obviously your ego will just be a somewhat benefit. But with the side of ego where it's more, it makes you think that you're the shit in a bad way, not a good way. It makes you think you're above certain people. I'm not talking about waiters, more like relationships, family. For me, I had loads of problems when it came to like thinking I could fix everything, thinking I can fix everything, but dealing with all of it myself. So like my brain or my ego would just not want to tell anybody about anything that either goes wrong, or it made me overpromise a lot of stuff. Not really think about what I'm doing, not be conscious of things that I've told people or the way that other people think. I wasn't perspicacious either. Like I wasn't very. If you know what that word means, it's more like I couldn't see what was happening in the situation from other people's perspectives. Like I just kind of focused on my own, and that was it. That's where like I had the kind of mindset where I'm sure a lot of old people have this. It's where like if somebody's doing something that they don't do, then that person would see them as an idiot or like see them as wrong. But being perspicacious means you can look into the perspective that they have and see, okay, is what you're doing or is what the situation that you're currently facing, why are they reacting in a certain way. I'd never do that. I'd always just think about if they didn't react the same way I did, and then they're an idiot, they're stupid. So do you feel like you had anything like that, and what would that be, and if there's anything like that, then what would you tell yourself, and that's like in that kind of period in your life before you moved to Dubai, example? I can't take it.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, I definitely had stuff like that. I don't know if I'd tell myself anything. It all resolves and evens out in the end. Yeah, I definitely I had elements of everything you described.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did anything in particular about it though. I think it's just because I was always like, with a lot of these things, I knew when they were happening. I just kind of ignored it. I brushed it off as it's not that bad, and I think it was eventually, the more I hung out with people that didn't have those negative qualities, I felt like, I want to pick a life direction where I end up more like them.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of, I'm thinking of Bharat as one guy that we both know. He doesn't.
For some context, this guy Bharat is a friend of ours in Dubai. He's kind of like. So we'll talk about this a little bit in a little bit about kind of the men we want to be.
I feel like you've said this line like 20 times now.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it in a bit.
Because a lot of stuff will come.
So much.
A lot of stuff will come. But I want to keep it going along the journey so you guys can fully understand the kind of the context of why Sami's saying certain things and why I'm saying certain things.
Yeah.
So for example, like when we talk about this guy called Bharat, he's a type of guy where we look up to him in many ways for the way he lives life, the way his life has gone, his morals, his values, that kind of thing. So a rich guy who's kind of has everything that we would want to have, and like as we see it.
I mean, he's the typical, like, to me, at where I am right now, he is one example of what success looks like.
Exactly,
And we kind of like, you know, we make it our own. Like, you know, you've got big characters like Tate, who, you know, is very cool, but I think most people wouldn't want to be exactly like him.
Yeah.
And then you've got people like Bharat, and it's like kind of the standard nuclear family, like happy wife, healthy children, lots of cars, lives in a good place, kind of, you know, is active in the community, good connections, just a fucking, you know, works a lot, you know, super hard working, works thoroughly, works smart. You know, he is one image of what, you know, and success is always something that kind of moves, right? It's like a carrot and stick thing. Like, you're only, in my opinion, someone I would consider successful if you're kind of happy and working towards something. And that absolutely doesn't have to mean money. It just happens to be in this case. But yeah, that's there's no point talking over that. That was not going to come out. What was the actual question? I'm sorry.
So it was.
That's brilliant.
That's good. So the next thing I wanted to talk about anyway was so we're now going to move on to kind of the point where you're moving. So talk us through the timeline between, for example, dropping out, buying your car, and then from a few months later you first hit your first million, and then when you went to Dubai properly and kind of set up a new base. Talk us through that kind of timeline.
I don't actually remember. I think I was just like messing around and enjoying the freedom, traveling. Probably came to LA a couple times.
It was on your 17?
I've lost track of where we are now. I'm pretty sure I became a millionaire when I was 17, because I remember being happy about it happening before 18, and I was kind of nervous. I was actually pissed off for a while, like Wolf of Wall Street style, when the dude's like, I only made 49 million, and that was 3 short of $1 million a week. He says that as like one of the opening lines. I was carrying that energy at that time, which was amazing. I found it to be a very fun phase. It was cocky, but it was all internal. You know, I wasn't showing that to the world. I was just in competition with myself, and so that was fun. But yeah, I mean, there was just a long time where actually I could have kept pushing, and I fucking wish I did. This is maybe like one of the. I don't really regret anything because I'm still doing very well, but I really applied the brakes, you know, around that time. Not necessarily to come to a stop, but definitely to slow right down. You know, if my growth trajectory was like that, I'd drop that shit down here.
So what kind of life were you living, and why do you think your brain, you and your world did that?
Well, I did it because I realized I was lonely as fuck, and you know, like, I mean, I would keep getting more and more lonely if I kept elevating and this was before I went to a place like Dubai, by the way. I don't know, you can find friends in different circles that are more ambitious and so on. At the time, I only had the friends I had, and I was totally alienated from them. They alienated themselves. I alienated myself from them. You know, it went two ways, and I just felt like, you know, like I've got to either, you know, just not continue or work on pulling my friends up first, which was, you know, a very heroic thing to think, but it didn't work out. And it, you know, and I did some bad things trying to make it work as well, really trying to push friends in the direction that I figured would be the correct direction, and that was kind of the bad thing, is I just I was you know, and it didn't work, you know, and so I wasted a lot of time. I didn't, you know, these friendships turned out perfectly fine. I'm still really close to these guys, but you know, I mean, it could have gone bad, and that was kind of one of the reasons. And then I just kind of, you know, I mean, experienced what it was like to be with a girl for the first time, and that was obviously fucking amazing. I mean, it's a totally different way to live life as a couple. It's amazing. It's like probably the best way, and I don't know, that's debatable, but yeah, I mean, eventually most people will settle on that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, I mean, I was enjoying that, and yeah, that's what I guess the story looked like.
So from what you said there, let's talk about that, because it's
and by the way, sorry, just to add in, I've just condensed like from becoming a millionaire to basically moving to Dubai, like that time period, and that was like probably a year and a half. Yeah, because I moved to Dubai like basically end of 2020, mid 2020, end of 2020.
Okay, so from that time where you hadn't moved to Dubai yet, this time you're talking about, and you've made your first bit of money, you kind of felt like you were a bit lonely. One big thing with a lot of the guys in the winner circle, myself included, one thing that we experience with friends especially is that when we haven't found like our new friend group, for example with both of us, our friend groups became what they are now, or what they were before when we went to Dubai. So before you had that, and that's obviously with the friend group that's full of entrepreneurs, people on the same path as you, people that are way more cool than you, that kind of stuff. So but before this, you were your friends from school, and also how is that dynamic for you in terms of you have friends that you want to lift up with you, that kind of just like,
just before I get to that, something very important I want to say is, like, you know, I was struggling to find good friends, and I'm sorry I had to interrupt because this is so important. Like, I need to say it is it's important because I'll forget. The best way to get better friends is be a better person, like be more interesting, you know. And again, I started to realize this when I consistently found that I couldn't seem to land better friends, and I realized, well, like, why the fuck would they want to hang out with me? And that was kind of the fix. But yeah, sorry, you can finish.
So is this a bit more, because obviously there's a problem that a lot of you guys, or the Winner Circle, and myself and Sami had as well. The problem you have with your old friends that came from way before you were, for example, school is a very good example, school, university, they came from way before you had success, you had the new different mindset shift, perspective shift in the world. So with those friends that you kept, or even before you decided to keep them, what was that dynamic like? Did you feel like you wanted to push yourself away from those friends? Did you feel like you wanted to help them? Like,
yeah, I wanted to help them, and they just kind of weren't receptive. That was mostly it. I see this all the time, actually, and it's not like a friends back then type thing. It's like consistently, it's still friends even today.
Yeah.
Even people that we would all consider to be wildly successful even. People more successful than me by traditional metrics. Yeah. I consistently see that people just want to complain, and they don't actually want to tackle their problems. And if it were different, and they don't just want to complain, and they do actually want to tackle their problems, it won't be a fucking problem. It'll be a problem for like 2 days, and then they'll solve it, and that's it. And then there is no problem again. And that is that's something that made me actively decide I'm going to stop putting my hand out for everybody. And instead, you know, lead by example, and ask questions. You know, the correct approach is not, in my opinion, to outright go to somebody and be like, you know, no, this is a better way, this is why, stuff like that. The better way is you just question them. You lead them to questions that'll make them realize that what they're doing isn't smart, and they've got to change up what they're doing. It makes them feel like it's their idea, which is important for the ego, but it also means that they can only understand it in order to do what you're saying, and that's better than, you know, someone reluctantly doing it because they just figure they have to listen to you. You know, if they understand it, then yeah, that's insurance against them falling off again. So questions and leading by example, far better. It's selfish too. You know, it means you help yourself. It means you fill your own cup, which has its own benefits. But also, it's efficient. It's actually what will allow you to help others.
So that's a really interesting point, because I feel like I had the opposite of what you had in terms of I had the opposite perspective. So for me, I was very the type of guy, and it's something that I really tried to work on a lot, and I still try to work on it. I was and always have been the type of guy who just didn't understand why somebody wouldn't just listen to me and just do what I said because I know I'm right in that way. That was obviously a big thing to do with ego. That was one of the way egos just kind of made me do things that people didn't obviously like. So that was one of the things. So I'd be a very kind of like straight to the point, like instead of, because there's a difference between coaching and almost like consulting. As a consultant, and obviously that's not professional with your friends, but I'm just saying as to give you guys an idea. Coaching is kind of coaching somebody to be on their way to the answer that you know is right, but you just not going to tell them until they figure it out themselves. And that's exactly what you said. So it's more of I was the type of guy who just tell them the answer and then just say whatever you're doing is rubbish, just do this, and that's a much better way. Even though yes, I am right technically, it is the completely wrong way of saying it. Even if the guy is receptive, the guy or girl is receptive.
The thing is, I would rather hear that though. Like,
so I think things like I'd love to hear it that way rather than being coached there, because I know when somebody's trying to coach me.
It's just faster, isn't it?
So, but like for people who don't really understand, and I kind of like your friend, like for example, the type of person who is like your friend from high school, does kind of like just sees you, looks up to you, and kind of just wants to do what you're doing or understand it at least or get started. But they're still very much in a space where they're not doing things for themselves. They're still like every other student person in the world. average life, doing what their mum and dad says, that kind of thing. And also if they're a bit older, if you go ahead and tell them that everything they're doing is a lie, like very strictly, like sorry, no, abruptly, like I did, just because I knew it was the fastest way of doing it. Like I knew that when people would, for example, if my girlfriend would say to me, "You're being too like harsh," just coach them a bit more. But then obviously I have the same mindset where it's just like, but you want to get it done sufficiently, like just tell them what it is and they can do it. But a lot of people in the world psychologically just aren't like that, so I feel that's a very important point to remember, especially when you're young.
I think people need to toughen up, bro.
That is true.
This is fucking ridiculous.
It is very true. Like, that's our perspective on the world, because they should, but that's just
like,
not the
bro,
world.
like
That's not the way,
these people need to fucking hit the gym, fucking, you know, like get some sunlight, drink some water, like get their body back in like being human, and fucking study some history about what their ancestors were doing. You know, like for me, one of the big things that stopped this like pussy fucking behavior was during the pandemic. There was this one like image of, and I'm not even trying to make a political statement about this, it's just something that's going to put a lot of shit into perspective, is you had boys, fucking like teenagers, bro, younger than us even, charging down the shores of France to fight German soldiers, Nazi soldiers I should say, you know, during the war, and they knew they were gonna die. You know, they knew that was the last day, and they're fucking screaming, bayonet in hand, charging down. These are men younger than us, and you know, like shit. Like if you've got someone that's like already there telling you what to do, even if they're not telling it to you in the best way, like when I was in that position, I would shut the fuck up and listen, and I think we need more of that. Like I don't understand why people aren't like that.
For sure, I have even though it is quite, no, I totally have the same perspective in the world. I feel like we should be like that. And that's when a lot of the time when, for example, if one of my students come to me, or somebody younger than me comes to me and just says the thing where like they're not very motivated to do work. So there's two ways you can do this. The way that it should be, in our opinion, can be a lot more harsh and direct. Like, if you want something for yourself, you gotta go and get it yourself. It's not a game where you have to gain motivation points.
If you're out of motivation, the next guy who doesn't need motivation because he's disciplined is gonna come in, take your fucking prize, and you're still broke, and this motherfucker's rich now. Like,
100%.
There's no question of motivation. Like, for me, like I had to ask a few rhetorical questions. These rhetorical questions solve the deal. Is it you know, like, does your mom drive her dream car? Is she living in her dream house? Does she have her dream kitchen? You know, do your parents have to fucking worry about the bills? Like, holy shit, if this is a factor and you need motivation, what you really need is a fucking kick in the balls, and you know, like, you know, like it's unacceptable to be like, I don't have motivation. Like, get the fuck out of here, mate. Like, you're totally screwed from the beginning. And the reason I take this approach is like, you just can't. Like, they're just empathy like seekers at that point. Like, I mean, you know, there's no point having a discussion with someone like that.
The thing is though, it's very important. Even though what we're saying is to a lot of people quite harsh and maybe egotistical, we're saying it not from a place where we just are like people who just like to say like we do everything, we're always perfect. Like, we were at one point, like, what we were saying is stupid. Like, 100%. For me, example, like for me, I was exactly like what we're talking about, is like the worst way. Like, I used to be extremely pessimistic, see things just don't work for me, even though everybody else is making money, absolute poor. That it just doesn't work for me. For some reason, for me, it doesn't work. I had this really bad pessimistic mindset and perspective in the world, and I know majority, if not all of you, will probably have had that mindset or have that mindset right now, that perspective right now.
Do you know what changed it for me was I saw that many of the men that I wanted to be like, if you got to speak to them alone, they would talk like this. They wouldn't use the profanity that I'm using. You know, I'm adding a bit of flair because that's who I am. But yeah, I mean, they would say stuff like this, and it's not like a few of them. You know, like most people, they're not gonna say this publicly because everyone's scared. But most people would actually echo these thoughts. And you know who made me realize this was 𝐷𝐸 𝐻𝐧. Do you know him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the Jesus dude. You guys need to search him up. 𝐷𝐸.
We'll throw him up on the screen. He's
he talks like this, and and it was at the time that Andrew was blowing up, and Andrew fucking is way harsher than I am, and I started to realize, like, you know, I mean, there is an option to be a fucking man.
Yeah,
to like grab myself down here, check if there's something, and be a man.
Yeah.
And I saw that from looking at these other men that are like, you know, actually kind of like actively gunning for something. And you know, I mean, obviously this applies for women too. I'm just, you know, speaking as with figures of speech, but that was kind of it. You know, I mean, we're just so used to complete. I don't even know what kind of behavior. I don't know what word to use to describe it. Just complete fucking empty people. You know, living empty lives. But there are people that live colorful lives too. And you know, once you see it exist, you can go for it. And you can pick it up and make it yours.
For sure. So that's one huge thing where it's harsh, but sometimes actually people like Tate and his mindset. They are very. I think they're just needed in the world, especially now more than ever. I feel like for a lot of, I've even done it with friends who are from back where I'm from. For example, they've gone through a breakup, or they just want to kind of just stop being kind of like an average person and just live an average life, go to uni, do an average thing, and they want to just kind of like level up as a person, just do anything different. So I honestly told them a lot of times, just go watch Tate, just be immersed in his sort of mindset, even though yes it is somewhat harsh and kind of unreal sometimes. For a lot of the times it can kick you into kind of mindset where you're the kind of person where you should be, and you just don't settle for nothing. It's the same way what Tate would say, and anybody would say, who, if they really want to be rich and really want to be to be rich, for example, just be successful and live their dreams, they should get annoyed with the fact they don't have it, so the point where like they wouldn't want to sleep unless they're doing something that can make them money. So I think it's a big the world, or just kind of like life in general, the way the world is right now, it's kind of created this kind of safety net or like comfort for the world, or young people especially, where they can be okay with feeling a bit down, feeling a bit unmotivated.
Yeah, but it's like it's completely fucking useless. Completely useless, I mean, it'll give you like a bit of a, it'll give you some oxytocin or whatever the brain chemical is that gives you that comfort, but you're gonna wake up just as fucking poor the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna wake up just as fat or unhealthy the next day. Like, I mean, you can take your hit. I mean, you're no better than a drug addict. Your drug of choice is lies.
Yep.
But you know, I mean, if you want to actually get something, then you got to work for it, bro.
Yeah, you really have to kick yourself into the perspective that you should have in the world and yourself, which is, you know, I don't have time to be worrying about if I'm motivated or not. Like, motivation as a concept is just useless. It's the fact where you are in a really bad situation and you need to get out of it and be in a good situation, but you're just telling yourself it's okay being in this kind of like rough situation right now, because obviously the way the world is just now, the way the world is now compared to the way the world was 100,000 years ago with the cavemen. If they didn't go out, if they felt a bit unmotivated to go and get their food, you know what I mean, they're gonna die.
Bro, their wives are gonna die. Their children are gonna die. But
now the world is just made so easy and comfortable for us. We're like, if we don't work for 6 months, a year, or even years, it's alright. We can probably find a way to finesse it through the government or something. Or your parents, or whatever backup option you have. So if you really want to do something different in your life, not just live an average life, even that average success, 10, 15k a month, if you want to really blow yourself out of the water and do something really like special, you kind of do have to just kick yourself into the mindset where you just can't settle for anything but being the person you need to be to get what you want. So if that means staying up and working, you don't sort of like romanticize the fact of staying up and working and putting in your story, ask for validation.
For fuck's sakes, yeah, don't be posting it.
Yeah, just nobody. You have to be that type of guy. I talked about it a few times. You have to be that type of guy and girl who just can work like 20 hours in a day or 15 hours in a day and just not care or not give a shit about telling anybody. They don't have to put in their story like meetings, all this kind of stuff.
Do you know what though, man? Like, I remember when I was hearing stuff like this, it didn't actually help me.
No, at all. Yeah.
And what it actually did was it just planted a seed, and then I fucked off and lived my normal shitty life, and it's just like one day I kind of realized like shit.
Yeah.
You know, like I need to get serious.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing as well. Like any sort of advice like this that I'd get back in the day when I was like 17, just getting started out, my first bit of money, I wouldn't be receptive to pretty much any of it. The same when it came to spirituality, meditating, mindfulness, consciousnus, just being smart with your money. One big problem that with ego, that definitely probably the biggest problem that it gave me was I thought I knew it all, and in a way where like it's thought I knew it all and I was right every single time. Like I never thought I knew something and it was wrong. And I was so like I had such a conviction, but with myself, where even if I was a bit wrong or shouldn't have said a certain thing, I'd say it with such conviction to myself and to others, where yeah, it's had a thing where I just thought I knew everything, and then found that I'd never seek to people seek help or just advice from people who clearly knew more than me. And one very good example of this, which we'll talk about, is two very good examples. Is the way this hurt really with my family. Is that if I had a problem with my family, or if my family were telling me something, my mum and dad were telling me something that they want me to do something, and I said no, I want to do it my way. Even though my parents or anybody else who might be completely right, I would just never gone to them. In the first place, I would have never gone to them for the advice, and second, if they gave me the advice, I wouldn't take it into account. I'd just completely forget about it. So for me, ego is a massive thing, right? Because ego is the thing that will shield you. Sorry, not shield you, actually.
The thing is, family for me lost like a lot of a lot of grounding when it came to advice. When I realized just how little like I'd rather like there are just still like, and it's like shit. Sometimes you're just not born into the like the family that checks off. Like the pentagon, the skill pentagon I always talk about. Like you've got all these various skills. Like some families just aren't that developed. That's totally fine. Mine wasn't. But I just started to, like, when I saw how off the mark everybody around me was on the money front, it made me realize they're off the mark on fucking everything else too. And I realized that next with fitness and nutrition, they know fuck all about fitness and nutrition in an Indian, Pakistani, British community. That they're the most unhealthy motherfuckers in the world. I'm sorry?
It's alright.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, every single motherfucker ends up with diabetes in those communities. Every single one. They know absolutely nothing about it, and so they don't know that either. And then I just started to realize, well, look, I may as well just get the advice from people that actually know. Like people who actually are already fit, are already wealthy, already have a happy relationship. Already they check all these boxes. Let me just hear them talking. I don't have to doubt my source at that time. And I can just like freely take their advice, and then you find a pool of them, and you kind of like pick out your best parts from each of them, and then you have you.
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty much it. That's kind of through the journey of becoming more men. It's the same with women. Find your women mentors and follow them. But obviously we're going to talk more from the perspective of men, but same for women. All the girls watching. We did in this phase kind of just have to. Us definitely, we definitely shifted less of looking to your father or looking to your mother for advice like you normally would, or any normal.
They just get updates now.
Exactly. Yeah. So any normal family, average family would go to their parents for advice straight away. Like that was the first person they'd ask, the first one they'd think of asking. But for us, I think for majority of kids or young people that have made their bit of money, they really want to become real men, like charismatic. Like men, you just look at them and think like they know their shit, they've got their shit handled. You can't really get that from your parents a lot of the time, and it's a harsh truth, but you do have to kind of branch out and build your let's say network of people you can look to or listen to or ask things from. You kind of do have to grow that, and obviously the best way is going to be online. We'll talk about in a few minutes kind of like how we did that in person as well. But yeah, I think it's a massive point. If you really want some sort of real guidance in life, you can't always seek it from your parents. You kind of have to move away.
One of the most common things I hear is, someone's like, I want to make a serious change. This one's usually food and a person with a fat family. And it's like the most typical thing is like that person's fat and their whole family's fat. And so if they're trying to like eat clean, and that was kind of my problem too. Although my family wasn't like overly, like some people like really take it very far in their family. We weren't like that, but we were definitely bad. And it's just like one of the common things, but this can apply to anything. The one individual starts trying to make a change, and then family comes down and then like, why are you changing and stuff like that, and just all this bullshit stuff. And again, the thing I just urge someone in that position to remember is that you have to really consider whose opinions you're going to value. And I understand your family is important, and that's totally fine. I'm not saying write them off, but if you're trying to get fit and you're listening to a single fucking sentence out of somebody that's not fit, I don't give a shit if it's your doctor, if it's, Dr. Fauci in New York, whoever the cunt is in this country, or if it's anyone, like, if that person isn't actually fit, I don't want to hear a word from them. And it's the same from someone that's rich. I also don't want to hear from the guy that went bankrupt. I want to hear the success stories first. Yeah. And only take advice from people like that. And when you're very, very careful about the data, because you are taking in data, these words, these feelings, these emotions. When you're very conscious of that data that you allow into your mind, you're only going to get it from good sources. Yeah. And that's going to, so I had to tune it out. Like, I remember when I was still living at home with my parents, and I stopped eating, you know, I'd be eating like once a day, which was totally fine, by the way. Like, if you try it and you see what 1 meal a day fasting is like, okay, unless you're a woman, you know, because you're gonna have your hormonal cycles, but you know, if you're a dude and you're just doing your 1 meal a day fast, like, this is piss easy when you get, you know, get 2-3 days in, and it's just a lifestyle. Like, you don't have to work for it anymore. It's actually quite nice. And you know, like, if your family is just talking shit about it in the meantime, like, again, I remember when that was happening to me, and I had to remind myself, like, these people's opinions don't count right now. Like, they have fucked up in this domain, and they, you know, whereas I've got 𝐻𝐸𝐺𝐬𝐿, you know, that actually replies to my DMs. And by the way, many of these big guys do reply. Like, it's worth giving it a try. You know, saying this, you don't even need to DM them. Actually, like, I mean, everything's already out there. You know, when you got these like actual people that have like checked these things off, giving advice. What go to your parents for? You know, like, I get it. They did their job, you know, but part of them doing their job well is making sure that you can learn. You know, and you gotta choose your right sources.
For sure. So I had one good experience with this that I remember. Is when I was in an Uber in London, and the guy was curious about like what I was doing. So this young guy, I think he told me he did pharmacy in uni and now he's an Uber driver. Like 24, 25, something like that.
That's peak, bro.
So I was telling him about, he was a nice guy, so I was telling him about like, what I do. I was at this point, I was doing quite well. It was probably like 6-7 months ago. He asked me what do I do, so I told him what I do. Now I run a marketing agency, blah blah blah, I'm into crypto, whatever it is. And then he said to me, "But bro, that's risky. You should definitely go to university though. You should have a degree. Like, you just need to have it regardless. Like look at me. Like I got my degree and I'm doing whatever I want."
And that's kind of.
So there's two things I want to talk about here, and it's definitely what we just talked about, which is to get to really further your life. You can't seek advice from people who aren't at your position, at a better position in that respective field. So so this is the best way to do it. It's like, if they're not doing, for example, it's fitness. If you're not taking it from a guy who looks like the way you want to look, then most of the time probably don't take their advice into the action. Don't just take their advice and be happy with it. You know, and just say bless them. The second perspective to have with this, and it's very, very important, especially this is something that I've learned past having a huge ego, kind of like bringing it back down. You don't want to be the kind of guy or girl where people give you advice even if they're less than you, because all the time people who are quote unquote like less than you or less successful, have less freedom, not living as good as a life as you, they can still have a lot of experience in those different realms, especially with people. So,
I totally get that, and I don't want to ever discount that, but I feel like there's so much advice already out there from people that have also checked the boxes,
for sure.
that like I'd rather just listen to them.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of why, like, and some people interpreted this as like big ego Sami type thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some truth to that, but dude, like, it's like, do you know what it's like? It's like you've got two fucking apples in front of you, right? And one of these apples is just perfectly ripe and everything's okay with it, and one of these apples is good. It's like 80% good, but it's like kind of off, you know, on the inside or something. And you only have like the stomach capacity for one apple. Like, which one are you going to consume?
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to for me. Is like, taking in information is quite easy. You know, you just have to sit there and listen, you know, or
sure.
read. And so I'd rather, you know, even though, you know, and I don't like using the word lower, but even though, you know, someone might not have attained what you want, and yet they still might have good advice, you know, it's still better to hear it directly from the mouth of the guy that's actually done it.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. But what I wanted to touch on when it came to people who you just know the advice they're giving, just from a family member, from a friend's dad, anything like this, even the Uber driver. If they're giving you advice, don't listen to it and be the person, because I was this for quite a while. Don't listen to it and be the person who is just looks like, gets that advice and just thinks, yeah, shut up, like, just stop talking. Even though yes, like what they're saying isn't going to be of much value to you, at the same time you need to keep the perspicacity. I mentioned that word before. You need to keep the perspicacity in ways we need to understand why they're giving that advice and why for them they're saying that they have that view versus you have your view. So you have to understand why they have their perspective and you have your perspective, and that you're lucky and you should be grateful that you now have your perspective. But should be obviously the more entrepreneurial freedom kind of mindset, that you want that over just having an average or comfortable life. So for sure, that's something very, very important though, because if I could go back, and there's a lot of things I could go back and do that change. But the biggest thing would be a lot to do around my ego, and I just wish somebody told me this earlier. And it's definitely like perspicacity and just keeping humility in every situation throughout the day, or just being conscious of those two words, like perspicacity and all those two concepts, of being like humble, and also just being able to see different situations and things, see different things that are being said in different perspectives. So you're not just living your life in your own bubble, disregarding anybody else's life. I think it also makes you a lot more grateful about where you are in life. Because one big thing after I'm talking about this, one big thing that I did to really help me with this is meditation. Meditation is kind of like gaining clarity in a lot of ways. Obviously, meditation is the biggest kind of like method of getting there. And the one big thing that I always got were after meditating for especially like a long time, like 15 minutes, was that I just felt grateful about where I was. I think the more you have that in your day-to-day life, the less you will then be judgmental or disregard other people's viewpoints, or just the person in general, anything like that. Anything egotistical, you just kind of avoid. So that earlier on you do stuff like this, and I'll make videos on this for sure, because it's something that it's probably the biggest part of my life that I had to try to fix after having my success. So yeah, for sure, just that's one of my points to remember. Just be perspicacious, and always show humility, for sure. So next thing that I want to talk about is kind of moving on to the phase where you're now moving on to, you'll probably, let's talk about like when you became a millionaire. This is before you moved to Dubai. Yeah. So before, in that time when you first made your million, the quick thing before you made your million, what do you think? Was there anything in specific, or was it just a case of hammering down what you were already doing when it came to going from what made you 300k?
I can't actually remember. I think it was just more of the same, bro.
Yeah, just continuing the same stuff, not changing up, not adding new things.
Yeah, but the thing I'd add is that because I was in crypto, it wasn't actually like it got harder.
Yeah, for sure.
Crypto just kept compounding.
That's one of the beauties of crypto. It's just the thing where to turn a business into a 7-figure business takes work. I mean, for crypto, it's a case of you making some good trades and then Bitcoin itself going up. It just kind of happens. Yeah, that's the beauty of something like crypto.
Yeah.
It's just things like making a million can just happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen straight away, but with a good strategy and it's executing on it, with time, it'll just happen. Which is why Sami and then me both saw crypto as like this is just beautiful. This is our thing. I was very lucky when I first got introduced to it, and obviously Sami got introduced years before me. So yeah, this is a thing where that's why, you know, in the winner circles, it's something that we always like learn about, something that we always talk about is how we shift our money from our businesses, especially early on, and then shift it to crypto and try and multiply it and actually have some wealth.
That's the best way.
Rather than just trying to stick. A lot of people just have this weird notion or this kind of perspective where probably got it from like their mom or their dad, where they just think their business money is their business money and the profits go straight into a bank and that's their money. You know, a lot of people live that life, and we'll talk about this. I'll talk about this in a little bit. But yeah, like a lot of people just have the perspective where they don't understand the game. That's the game of like being a millionaire is something that we'll talk about just in a couple of minutes after we finish this. But yes, there's a game to it, and crypto's a massive part to it, I think, right now as well, especially more than anything else. Crypto's probably like the second step after business and kind of like entrepreneurial and stuff. So going from that point where you are now a millionaire to moving to Dubai, what kind of shifted it from being a person where you were traveling? So because million's a lot of money. Like people move countries with just on 15-20k a month. So in this period where you hadn't set up a new base, so you started in London as a child, and you then
I didn't need to leave.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was okay with paying tax, and you know, I mean, it was okay, and it was kind of. I think I was okay with paying tax, but you know, because you pay tax so late after when it's due, like, not because I was late. I mean, that's just the way the tax is. I didn't have to actually process the payment until much later. And so I kind of like got stabbed twice, I feel. And that second time was during the COVID pandemic. And because of all the corruption that was going on within the government around that time, and just the horrible policy making, decision making, the rejection of science at the beginning, and then the overconsumption of false science, you know, later on, and so on. Mate, I remember watching the news every single day in January of 2020. Wondering why the fuck is BBC News not talking about this more? Like, that's the time you take. All of Asia did this correctly. Like, they took the pandemic seriously at the very beginning, It's just that in the West we were like, bugs can't touch us kind of thing. And you know, that was it exposed the sheer incompetence of government. You know, I mean, it was already there. It was already there in the West, but it became so much more apparent, you know, with the pandemic. And the fact that I then had to pay my tax bill to these motherfuckers at the same time was what made me decide that I'm done. They also outlawed my trading, which is derivatives.
Yeah.
You know, because they're absolute fucking idiots, just looking for more ways to screw things up.
Yep.
They allow gambling. Gambling is fine. It ruins people's lives.
Yeah,
it takes people completely out of their social class. But God forbid you trade Bitcoin as a derivative. You know, and educate yourself. No, that's illegal. So again, it was just seeing that they are running the country into the ground. And guess what? At the same time, I wanted to drive nice cars and I couldn't get insured.
Yeah.
You know, because I was too young. I literally could not get insured, regardless of how much money I threw at them, whether it was 50k or 500k. They wouldn't allow me to do it. Not to say I would spend that much, but it literally wasn't possible. But it was possible in Dubai. And that was actually, it was the tax, it was the law, it was the fact that I could drive. The fact that I could drive was the main thing that sprung me to it. Like, I mean, drive nice cars, nicer cars.
Yeah.
You know, I could afford them, I just couldn't, you know. So that was what made me, you know, jump ship.
So moving to Dubai, how was that kind of like going from? So from the life where you were traveling for that little while, when you were already a millionaire, you're just traveling the world. From that time, was there anything like, kind of that you got? Was it kind of like how you tried that lifestyle, you didn't like it anymore, or was there anything you got from that time period from traveling?
Do you know what, man? Like, I had a few spots that I really wanted to hit up, and I checked them off. You know, I mean, I haven't been to Asia yet. Like at all. I've not been further east than Ras Al Khaimah in the UAE.
Yeah.
So you know, and that's basically the way. So I haven't really had a, you know, I mean, I'd like to go to Singapore, Japan, and all those places, and you know, maybe even Thailand and so on. But you know, really, all I wanted was to see Western Europe, the USA, and Dubai. Not even the Middle East, just Dubai.
Sure.
So. You know, and the reason for that is I like staying in places that are very well developed. Life is just easier that way, and I love to drive. You know, so obviously, you know, you can't do that as much in Asia, and I like being able to be in a place where everyone speaks English. It just makes life easier.
Sure.
I don't appreciate the added challenge. So that is, you know, when I hit all these places, and I did a few other smaller trips. You know, I did the cute, you know, romantic getaways, and you know, the lads' trips to Amsterdam and so on, and you know, I felt like, you know, I mean, there's many more experiences that could be had, but the ones that could be had in the three bases that I would love to be in, London, Dubai, Los Angeles, you know, there's a lot to do in these three places that I haven't done yet, so I want to focus on that.
Sure. So moving to like setting up a new base is a massive point in everybody's journey.
Huge.
Sure, it's a massive point for you as well. Especially moving into the building that you moved into. So that kind of whole process, was it an enjoyable process? Kind of like just going to a country, setting up a new base, finding new friends, discovering a new city, understanding a new city, everything like that. What was the process like for you, and did you enjoy it? Anything that you got from that process?
It was nice, man. I mean, you know, you grow up a lot, you pick up a lot of skills. It's very clear now. If you could speak to me now versus, you know, 2 years ago before I moved, I am a totally different person, so much more knowledgeable and all that stuff. And it's just a great way to like bring the hockey stick growth back. You know, I put myself down here. I managed to crank that shit, you know, quite high. You know, by moving. You know, how was it? I mean, you know, I spent money on it. You know, I didn't go cheap, sure. And I mean, you know, it wasn't crazy. I think it was super worth it. But I did spend more than you know, what most people would, and it meant that the process was actually frictionless, and I needed that because I was running a business, managing staff, trading is hard enough on its own. Like, fuck me, I'd moving country on top of that, you know, you're making your life very hard. You know, so I don't want to handle any of it. I had other people that were, doing all the paperwork for me, and you know, telling me where to sign, and that was it. You know, and if anyone wants that plug, I can, you know, shoot me a DM. So, you know, that's kind of the approach I took, and it was great. It completely killed my stress in the process. So actually, it was very easy to move.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally just I had to pick myself up and sign some papers, and you know, appear in some meetings and smile, and you know, let the other guys talk for me, and I just kept doing what I'm good at, you know, and that was the way.
Yeah.
So,
Do you feel like your way of living, your sort of, not motivation, but you kind of drive, do you feel like it went up a notch, leaving a place like London, or leaving where you've been your whole life and moving to a whole new city? Do you feel like I had a massive shift?
It's easier to find, you know, people that are either successful or trying to become successful in their own ways, like whatever they feel success is, than in a place like London.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the way, and what I love about it, kind of is, you know, you can't really be there if you're not working for something. You know, I mean, like, you literally can't be there. You're gonna get kicked out. You won't have a visa. And you know, I mean, it creates this huge hustle culture, you know, like nobody is there to fuck around, you know, like people are, unless you're already extremely rich, you know, but for the most part, everyone's kind of working towards something, whether they're rich or not already, and that is cool. Obviously, you know, the downside of that, the biggest downside of that, is it means that almost nobody is permanent in Dubai. You know, it's going to be like a maximum 5-10 year stint, and then they're back to wherever they, you know, grew up, or somewhere else entirely. And I don't know how I would handle that yet. You know, I mean, I love so many aspects of it, but at the same time, I always feel like I might have to return to England eventually.
Yeah.
Just because,
Sure.
yeah.
So, moving to Dubai for the first time, what are some of the things that you did, things that you'd recommend, advice that you have on kind of coming to a new place and setting up a new foundation of a network?
I'd say, friends come pretty easy in a place like Dubai, or in any big city. I would not worry about that. That's one of the bigger things that I used to be worried about. Again, you know, I mean, make yourself worth being someone, you know.
Yeah, that's one massive thing to remember. It's one thing that I always tell people when they ask me should I move to Dubai. It's like, before you go to a place like Dubai, if somebody asks you, you know, what do you do, or like what is your life, anything to do with you, if you can't really reply with anything interesting, a place like Dubai just isn't quite it. And it can be anything really. I'm not saying you have to be rich all the time, but you just have to have something about you that is at least you can talk about something.
Just be good at be good at what you do. Exactly, be very, in fact, be the fucking best. Be the best at what you do.
Be the best at what you do. Just do something that you actually enjoy, so there's passion coming through. I think I feel like Dubai's not always, but a lot of times very passionate. Like, a lot of people that are there doing what they do, they're very passionate about what they do.
They're doing what they want to do.
Exactly. So and that's what's giving them the freedom and the kind of like life that they're not just working all the time. You know, a lot of people, especially in London, I think it's a lot more than places like Dubai and LA. People are a lot more talk about work and their lives are 9 to 5. Even though if they're not in 9 to 5, they still talk like they're in 9 to 5. It's a lifestyle where they can't go out. They're working every day until a Saturday, and they always complain about being too busy and having too many meetings and phone calls. But in Dubai, it's more of a place where, I mean, in my opinion, it's more of a place where it should be a lot more relaxed. You go out, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. You know, it can be Monday, Tuesday, it can be the same Saturday, Sunday. That kind of stuff. So your life is just more like you work for the first 5-6 hours of the day. You go gym and you can see people. There's always something going on in Dubai. That's why I loved it. It was definitely more of a place where life just didn't have to have an annoying structure to it. It didn't have to have a real like weird, awkward culture about it. Like just the fact of doing work, you don't have to go to an office. Like, it's just people just get their shit done and then meet up at any time. That was one of the reasons I love Dubai so much. That there's no sort of weird, there's no sort of like weird thing like that where you anybody can be available at any time. And people, if you're there and you're staying rich, then obviously most of the time everybody's just getting their shit done. So
I'd say don't go to Dubai until you've achieved, you know, some level.
For sure, 100%.
You know, stability.
Even though it is a very good place to kind of go there and then grow yourself further, I feel like it's a place where you go there with success and you grow success into like generational success. I can think.
You go there to jack up what's already good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got to be good first, and
sure.
You know, you're just gonna get like. This is the thing, is like a lot of people have this perspective that, you know, if they go to a place like Dubai, it's gonna make them successful. Like, nah, dude, if you're not successful already, and then you go there, like it's most likely just gonna hurt you a lot, because Dubai will milk you. It'll absolutely milk you if you're not responsible, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what that's for me.
Yeah. I mean, it'll it's way too contagious to show off and you know, try and fit in, and because it's always from the very beginning structured as a fucking ego show off game, you know, of who's got the biggest fill in the blank, and it's a horribly toxic environment to be in if you're already somewhat narcissistic, which you probably are if you're considering going to Dubai. Let's be honest, it's totally fine, but you know, there's probably some element of it. So you know, I mean, you need to do something before you get there.
Yeah, for sure. So from that, kind of being in a place like Dubai for probably for a few months now, as we're talking about, you kind of have everything and living the life that you want to live. So from there, what is your perspective and kind of opinion on the just making more money will make you happy and improve your happiness? What is your opinion on that?
That's generally been the case, actually. Yeah.
So what? Yeah, talk to me about like what your opinion is, and like does the money make you happy? Is there anything else?
I mean, look, like, it's not gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a really fucking toxic person already. Getting rich isn't going to make it worse. It can definitely isolate you and stuff like that, and that can mean, you know, like you can't relate to your friends, or they're jealous and so on, like that. You know, these kind of issues can come up for sure. But for the most part, chase the fucking bag, bro. That's the way I see it. You know, once you... Here's the thing. I'm going to break this down with a smaller analogy that's easier to digest, right? As if you've got like this tribal village in Africa, that's still like super out of date with current day technology and so on, and they gotta like scrub their clothes down and spend like, you know, the woman in the family's got to spend like 2 hours on this every day. You know, the difference is, and this has actually happened all across the world, this is like the biggest reason that we all have to be optimists, is that as soon as that family unit gets a washing machine or a dryer in their house, and the woman has to, you know, doesn't have to scrub anymore for 2 hours, you know, she can start the washing machine up and open a book and be productive. And this is not like a, you know, get rich, you know, because you want to live a Wolf of Wall Street type life. But if you go back to the first ever big civilization that, like, the second ever big civilization that we know about, that we get taught about in the West, after ancient Egypt, is ancient Greece. And one of the reasons that they're known for being philosophers is they were rich, and they had food, they had an abundance of food, so, you know, some of them were rich, and the rich ones were thinking. And that's kind of, you know, like when you don't have to worry about the shelter over your head or the food on the table, or, you know, you can afford some level of luxury that you like. It doesn't have to be cars, it can be smaller, it can be bigger. You know, you're gonna feel, you know, relatively fulfilled, and you'll start fucking thinking. And that's where you start tackling the rest of the problems. So my opinion on this is very, very firm. Every single person that I know that's been poor and then been rich will say the same thing. It's obviously better on the other side. Yeah, it just it alleviates a lot of pressure.
100%. I think for me, in my opinion of money, it's more of a key. In my opinion, the concept of money is more of a key to do whatever you want. It can be the key to having time freedom, to be able to leave that life. It can then be the key to buying the cars you want to buy and living good. I think for me, the reason money is so good is because it just unlocks the freedom to live any experience that you want to live. It doesn't tie you down to... yeah, that's one big thing for me. Like where I was most happy with my life, not just like business, was when I could, for example, we have a couple of examples of what we did, and then in a scenario where you talk about something with your friend, like for example, one of our ones was we wanted to go to Austria. We wanted to go to the mountains in Switzerland and Austria, just live there for a couple of days because we were thinking about it one night in London. So then the next morning, I think that night or something, we called up our friend, said, "Do you want to do it?" Next morning we got it sorted. And then the day after that we were gone. And the same day we were gone.
Best way.
So it's like that, and also it's the same thing with any other trip that I've been on. Really, it's being able to have the freedom to have experiences that really, like, with the people that you like having experiences with. That's what makes money fun, man. It makes your life limitless, and the things that you can experience a lot more limitless. So last few things I wanted to touch on were more about life and lifestyle and your perspective after you're already a millionaire. So. Yeah. More of the stuff where you've gone past the stage of you trying it out in many different aspects of life. You're trying it out, you're seeing what happens, a trial and error kind of thing. You now, both of us are at kind of a point where with quite a few things, or a lot more than the average person, we know which way we want to do it, or which way we want to live life. So let's talk about, for example, one big thing that a lot of the guys, especially, I'm sure the girls will as well, but obviously I know more, we know more about the guys, is they'll be talking about females, relationships. Should they be in a relationship? Should they try have a girlfriend? Should they like try things with girls? Should they try travel and have that? Which lifestyle should they live with girls? So I feel like Sami and I are quite uniquely qualified, at our age especially, to talk about this kind of thing, in terms of what, because there's different perspectives you can have with females, and this is a whole like podcast in itself, to be honst.
Yeah, this is a whole thing.
We'll keep it condensed and not talk about like the philosophy and stuff. But yeah, just talk to us kind of like anything, your experiences of relationships, especially young ages. Is it of any value? Why is it valuable?
It's life. I mean, it's money is important. Working is important, but the cliche thing is true. You're not going to remember that shit when you're dying.
Yeah.
You're going to remember the first love. You're going to remember your mother, father, brothers, sisters, friends. These are the things that are your experiences and so on. That's what. By the way, the deathbed analogy is a little bit too far. I mean, if you look back like just the last 15 years of your life, it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to remember the homework you did.
Yep.
You're not going to remember the internship that you did unless it was a particularly unique experience. You're going to remember that time that you were out with friends in the woods and some dumb guy fell asleep and it was like a funny thing. And so it's great. I mean, seeing people is great. Having fun with people is great. And yeah, relationships are great.
So when it comes to telling, if you're talking to a young guy, even us like 2 years ago, is there anything that you'd tell that person when it comes to girls, especially if they're talking to a guy who's like us, or even like in the position that we are, in terms of they have success, they have money, they can do whatever they want, they're in a new place like Dubai. What is the advice you'd give, just general advice you'd give in terms of what to look for in a girl, how to act around girls in a way where, if they want to get a high class girl, and what should they look for, like all that kind of stuff. And also one big thing that we'll talk about is if the concept of relationships is of value to somebody who's just getting started out and young, because there's one big thing that a couple of guys in the winner circle recently that I remember of, they came to me asking me questions about like 16, 17, doing really well for themselves, 4-5k a month, and at that age, and they're thinking like, I have this girl who like I like, and I want to, should I be worried about it? Like, I have this girl who's like causing me stress, should I be worrying about it? That kind of stuff. So in your opinion, where do girls fit in an entrepreneur's journey when they're 16, 17, 18, 19?
Dude, I mean, I can't really comment on that last thing because I've never had a girl like giving me stress in the way you just described. I've definitely had stress, but not in that way. I mean, I don't know, dude. I'm still figuring this shit out. And I'm still pretty young. I mean, what's important to me is I mean, there's the obvious stuff, and beyond that, there's just being a good girl, really. But I feel totally unqualified to be like giving people life advice on this.
But for an entrepreneur, like a young entrepreneur, somebody's doing like 16, 17, they're doing well, and they're talking about girls. Like, should I start to talk to girls? Be serious. It's more serious.
Bro, you're fucking 16 to 17. Like, your life's not only being an entrepreneur. Like, fucking go have some fun.
Because one of the things that I always say first to any young guy who comes to me with this kind of just this topic, is I always say, when you're young, you're gonna two things. So the time you spend. If you spend it on yourself rather than the girl, you're probably gonna, even if it's with the same girl, and let's say like in a year's time, and then put the time that you would have spent on her and shifted it all back on yourself, all of your focus back on yourself, especially at the age of like 15, 16, 17, 18, and even a bit older than that. You're gonna have a much higher ROI. Yeah, it's hustle time. That's why I feel like girls just don't have a place in an entrepreneur's life to begin with.
I don't know, man. I've never felt that way.
I feel like at least the focus of having the objective to get girls at that age, it just shouldn't be a thing.
I mean, if you're trying to like fuck everything that moves kind of thing, then that's going to distract you, right? So, again, this is the same. It comes down to everything else, but it comes down to the same thing for everything else. Just don't be a fucking idiot, like, I mean, don't if every fucking Friday and Saturday you're pissing it away trying to find a girl, like
100%.
dude, like I mean you're literally writing off more than 20% of the week every single week. Maybe more if you're being hungover and so on, and maybe even more if you're dealing with girl drama the next day, stuff like that. So I mean, you got to think hard about how much time you're investing into each thing. But does that mean write off having fun, relationships, and fucking all the other stuff? Absolutely not. Like, you're still a human. Like, what are you working for if you want to completely resist, life and people? That's kind of my take. Just be reasonable about it. I mean, I honestly feel like I don't know if this is a segment or the full podcast, but if someone's been listening to the full thing up until this point, they're not going to have a problem with this. They've probably. Yeah,
I feel like being an entrepreneur in general, even if you've done the stuff that we talked about in terms of bettering yourself and focusing on yourself, and obviously then starting a business, and that business giving you success. With all the stuff that you're doing through that journey of doing all that stuff, bettering yourself and your business and making money, and also the money itself, it will give you kind of confidence and perspective on just doing things in general and living life that girls will admire. So I feel like if you just don't try to be like everybody else and be yourself and show charisma and show what you've learned, in terms of like being a lot more, make your time a lot more scarce, your attention a lot more scarce. Attention is a massive thing, so keeping that scarce and to yourself and only for people who...
That's a whole... We need to dive deep into that, bro. Like, there's a lot that we can talk about there.
100%. So yeah, I feel that's a massive thing for young guys. Just the biggest, probably the best thing to say is just focus on yourself, and if something great comes, follow the sweetness. Like, if there's something sweet, just follow it. Especially with girls. Don't force anything. But if something amazing happens and you're really happy, then follow along. But never lose track on your mission. Like, if you have a mission, your business and whatever else, just stick to it and focus. That's your priority, and then from there, other fun stuff can be there as well, for sure. So last thing I wanted to touch on, because we probably will run out of battery, is what is your goals in life and your perspective on life and kind of like where you want to be? How's that changed from years ago to now? Like what do you want out of life now more than ever?
That is a big one. Yeah. We're gonna have to save that for next time. Yeah, because I can. There's way too much to talk about there. Yeah,
for sure. That's good for now. So we'll see you guys in the next part. We will dive deeper into a bit more other things like that. A lot more deep stuff about our lives right now and what we're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah.
So apart from that, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.